Okay, could we call this meeting to order, please? Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, announcements. The Town Hall offices will be closed on Monday, December 26th for the observance of Christmas, and on Monday, January 2nd for the observance of New Year's Day. Town Council is scheduled to meet on the following dates. Monday, January 9th, 6 p.m. for a budget meeting here in this room. Thursday, January 12th at 7 p.m., regular council meeting again here in the Matthew Thornton Room. Thursday, January 19th at 6 for a budget meeting, again in this room. Monday, January 23rd at 6 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room for a budget meeting. And Thursday, January 26th, 7 p.m., again here in the Matthew Thornton Room for a regular council meeting. Busy January. Eileen?
Sorry, I've just been from outside. I have been asked not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't want this opportunity to go by without fully acknowledging the contributions of Peter Albert, Captain Peter Albert, who has just retired from the police force after 32 years. He doesn't, as is his way, he didn't want fanfare, he didn't want all kinds of things, but I just want to say on behalf of the town and the citizens that he has made a very strong contribution and has affected positively countless lives. And contributed toward keeping our town safe for 32 years. So, Peter, we wish you the very best, and we hope you're somewhere warm and sunny. And sorry, but I couldn't help doing it. And that's all.
Does anyone want to say anything to? No? Okay, what I just want to say is that, again, my sincere thanks, but also to make sure you stay healthy so you can enjoy your long retirement. So congratulations. Okay, PFOA update. The only thing I have to report is that we had previously mentioned that there were going to be a second round of letters sent out, and we had encouraged the public that when they receive the second round to please respond. Apparently there was a significant number of people who chose not to want to have their blood testing for PFOA, or they didn't respond. So the second round of letters have been sent out. So again, I would encourage those people who have responded to either respond that they don't. I mean, the sooner they get to the 200 number, the faster they're going to do it. So, and that's all I have. Jackie?
Nancy, I had a question about that. Was there going to be lead poisoning tested as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. No, I wondered because I thought that I had seen a reference to it.
Not that I'm aware of. No. Anything else? Anyone else know anything more I don't know? Okay. Comments from the press or public? Seeing none. Recognition, resignations, and retirements. Unfortunately, the people who we are recognizing tonight for the years of service were unable to attend this evening, so we could give them their awards and thanks in person. But I do want to make note of their names and their contributions, and they will be receiving their recognition. General Government, William Chuck Miller with a 40-year gift certificate. 40 years. Wow. Public Works Highway, Robert Burley, 30-year clock. And Wastewater, Richard Blanchard, 35-year lamp. Thank you, one and all. Congratulations. Anybody want to say anything? Apparently not. Okay, appointments. Under this we have yes. I already did that. That's all right. I don't mind. I've done it before. Nonprofits tax bill error submitted by Assessor Lauren Martin. Lauren, you want to come right up? Assessor Lauren Martin will provide additional details to the town council regarding this issue. So I'll let you just jump right in, and you might have to get it a little closer to you.
Is that good? Or
Is
closer?
that good? That's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
On November 18th, I had sent a memo down to the council, and I'm sure you've all read that memo by now, but I'm here. I was coming in for another matter tonight, so wanted to be able to come in and maybe address this and see if there was any questions or concerns or anything else I could possibly add to it. During the 2016 update this year, I tried to correct an issue with how religious, charitable, and educational properties were listed. In the past, they were listed as exempt state properties under their land use, and for proper reporting to the state, they should be listed with a charitable, religious, or educational exemption. So, in my attempt to try to fix an error, I made a much larger error. Right. So when we do an update for the town, I take a copy of the database out of the town so that I can work on that database, doing sales analysis and all the work needed to update the model. So when I did that, I corrected all those properties. I took that state exempt status off of them, and I added the exemption. The problem with that is that the exemption table was being maintained still at Town Hall here. The girls in the assessing office maintain elderly exemptions, veterans tax credits, things of that nature, and just wasn't thinking that I was going to have that issue, obviously. So I thought I was correcting a problem. When I brought the database back and we merged it in with all the new values, their exemptions table overwrote my exemptions table that I had those properties in, which resulted in 26 properties being sent a tax bill when they otherwise would be 100% exempt. This was largely affected the churches. There were a couple charitable, but it was largely church properties, religious exemptions. Immediately after tax bills went out, we received phone calls and became aware of it very quickly, of the error, which was what caused the sizable abatement to have to come down. We've implemented changes within our software to ensure that this won't happen in Merrimack or in any other community. And not that that's much consolation at this stage of the game, but that was one of our major concerns, was to make sure that while it was a sizable error, we didn't want it to happen again, either to Merrimack or to any other community. So we implemented that so that that would be maintained and not overwritten in the future. So I'm not sure what more I can add to that, except my sincere apologies for the, not just the error, but the magnitude of the error. Still kicking myself in the rear for it, quite frankly, that I didn't realize that this happened, unfortunately, until the tax bills went out. So I'm not sure what else I could add for it, but
the number that seems to bounce out me when you said 26 properties results in $33 million in valuation. That's a number that that sounds accurate. That 26 properties that are primarily churches, and I know we don't have 26 churches in town, so that's why that number doesn't jive with. If you could just
and
I
didn't bring
more
up
detail.
I can. I didn't bring the complete breakdown of those properties, but I think you have that. Yeah, it was all charitable, religious, or educational properties. So, I mean, Merrimack.
But I mean, you're sure? I'm
Thank
doubting
you.
that 26 properties could add up to such a large amount. and you're comfortable knowing that you feel that is the proper amount.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Believe me, I don't want to overstate that
When I
if I
see
don't
the
have
list,
to.
it didn't seem right. It just seemed like too much money for so few properties.
Yeah, and the list that you have is just giving you the tax dollar, but, when you look at some sizable properties like the YMCA, Merrimack Valley Baptist Church that has numerous properties that are associated with it, it doesn't take long to add up to a couple $1 million on a property like that, and a pretty sizable tax bill that would go
Okay.
along with it.
Thanks.
And I would add, if St. John Newman were commercial at its location, its value would be significant
Significant.
because of its location and proximity. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate it. Thank you, Lauren, for being here tonight, and I accept your apology. Mistakes happen. I guess the question that I would ask you is, what assurance does the town council have of having quality control or quality assurance in place so that in the future the people might be double checking whatever particular, not just the town of Merrimack, but the other towns? I mean, to me, when I hear a religious exemption and I see the Roman Catholic Diocese of Manchester, it pops out, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So immediately, in my eyes, if somebody was proofreading it, that would have thrown up a red flag for me. So I'm just,
Right.
what can
and-
you give us
well-
from a quality assurance standpoint?
Absolutely. When we, that was one of the first things when we realized this was an error, that I went to our software department to try to implement something in our software so that could not happen again. So those exemptions will be maintained by the assessor. So regardless of what copy of that database, wherever that is, they'll be maintained by the assessor so that can, because what the change that I tried to implement was the correct one. It just unfortunately got overwritten. So in quality control, when we later do the MS1 later in the year, we compare the year prior's MS1, and unfortunately, because it was wrong in 15 and it was wrong in 16, there was no real correlation. So for these specific properties, they've all been entered and updated now to show with the correct exemption. So on next year's MS1, they will show with a dollar amount for religious exemption, charitable exemption, and educational, and how many properties are in that. So that would be our red flag for 2017 to ensure that wouldn't happen again.
Okay. I appreciate the candor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Lauren, the assessing department, you have 4 or 5 people?
We have 3 staff members and myself.
Okay, the 3 staff members, are they employees of the town?
They are.
So, now, am I to understand that they keep a separate set of figures? That they're in charge of the exemptions?
Mhm.
And you are in charge of the assessments?
No, I mean, as the assessor, I oversee all that entire function, but when we're working on the update, I take a copy of the data out, essentially, so I was maintaining a portion during the update while they were maintaining a portion, and when I bring that data back with the updated values and the updated model, it's all merged together so that, if Finley, say, is receiving a veteran's credit, because it's being maintained on the town copy, the fact that I updated his value, that credit would still get applied to his property. So when we corrected those off-site, and because that was being maintained in-house, we essentially updated it in the wrong spot at that time, not cognizant of the fact that when it came back, it was going to be overwritten.
Yeah. Well, getting back to my question about the employees of the town.
Yep.
Mike,
Maureen, and Tracy.
Maureen, and Tracy. Are you responsible for different things also? No. It runs just like a town department,
It runs just like a town department.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
though you are not on the town payroll.
I'm a contract assessor,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's about it.
Since it's been brought up publicly, so I'm going to say a little something for the public too, but as well as us. So there basically was a over $33 million property valuation error, resulting in almost an $800,000 shortfall in our assessment. So therefore, we have to come up with, as the numbers work out, about a 24-cent tax increase in order to fix it. So are we here tonight to discuss those options of fixing it, or is this just out tonight? And if not tonight, when will that kind of discussion take place on how do we take care of the problem?
First of all, you go right ahead first.
We actually are not prepared to talk about that directly right now, but we feel confident that we have the ability to make up for that this year. We are seeing, so basically what would happen is, instead of having money left over at the end of the year, if you have extra revenues or you don't spend as much as you anticipated, instead of my coming to you and saying, what would you like to do with this? The answer is it will go toward this $775,000 error. So it, as long as we have that amount of money, and we're seeing, for instance, so far this year, we've already seen approximately $250,000 more in motor vehicle permits. So that offsets a third of it. And then, you know, there may be modifications that we need to make that are to expenditures, such as, I'll give you a list of things, but as we'll really need to look at it as the year progresses.
So at the end, if we're short a certain amount that's different than today, we then will discuss how to fix it then.
Yes and no, because we won't know all the revenues until it's almost too late, and we won't know all the expenditures necessarily. We want to hold off on doing some of the expenditures, like extra roads and that kind of thing that you had planned on doing, maybe, if that's one of the things you'd like to do. So we're going to have to kind of be in a holding pattern during this current year's budget that we're in right now. And as those decisions need to be made about reductions in
Projects
a
or
capital
whatever.
project or something like that, for instance, we will bring them to you, if, which I believe it will be necessary. It's just too much money.
I think one of the things that's important for the public to know is that we did not want to reissue the tax bills.
Yeah, that's the first thing both Nancy and I said.
No way.
When we talked
We
on the
will learn to
phone,
deal with
is
this.
there will be no extra tax
Reissue it.
bill, no extra Merry Christmas from Merrimack.
Okay.
No, that's not a,
And so through the
we
year,
would be
we
on
will
the
have
front page for
discussions.
that one.
We'll be able to project somewhat, especially when the winter's over and we know what kind of use we're using for the snow and whatever. How much was allocated and how much was used and how much is left over. Just like we did last year, we had some money left over, we put it back into the general fund. Well, we might not be able to do that this year if those numbers, but we won't know until that time comes. As it gets closer.
The other thing that I've also been doing, and was in part of the letter as well, is to try to determine what we would be picking up for 2017 for new construction that would actually help, so that we're not necessarily starting 2017 tax year looking at a deficit of 20 or 24 cents or whatever that equated to. So there's some significant new construction going on that's going to help offset some of that.
For the following year.
Correct, for 2007. Correct, for 2017.
So does that. Any other questions for Lauren or comments? Seeing none, Lauren, thank you. I know it was difficult, but you know
yeah.
what happens sometimes, and we learn, and
Oh,
won't happen again. We've saved some other towns some heartache.
oh, absolutely, and
Maybe we should have them kick in.
Yeah, I was going to say, we
I'll
get a
tell,
user
I'll
fee out
tell
of that.
them. I'll tell them.
We've saved you some money.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
I
Tom.
think Eileen called me pretty quickly about this whole thing, and the thing that was the response from Lauren and her company was immediate. Okay, first of all, yeah, we goofed. Second of all, here's what we've done to correct it. Okay, can't unring the bell. And we talked about ways of dealing with this whole thing, and we met with the municipal services director at DRA. He came down and spoke with us and explained to us how they normally operate in that set of circumstances. So I think that, yeah, we goofed and we found it quickly, and we took remedial
Notified you.
action,
Yeah.
and we let people know that it happened.
Immediately, yep. Of course, the churches let us know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as they
I'm
should.
sure, the bishop in Manchester, what? Say what?
He didn't even see it. I can
No.
assure you, he didn't.
Right.
It may not have gotten to his desk right away.
I bet he heard about it down the road, though.
Oh, I'm sure that he did.
Very good, thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Tom?
I just wanted to reiterate, and I'm saying what's been said already, there's no effort or desire to raise the taxes to try and recuperate that money. And on the other hand, we may seem like we're being calm about it, $750,000. There's nothing calm about it, and there's nothing easy about it, except that the town of Merrimack is in a reasonably healthy position financially, and we have a general fund that we can use, and we can work things out, and we've had some salaries, some positions empty that have left salary in the budget and stuff. So there have been things that have worked out for us, nothing that we can budget for. So it's not like we've budgeted in an extra $750,000 and it's no big deal, we'll just cover it. But we can work through that, we can cover it, we can diligently, through our staff, who does a tremendous job of following all our expenses and finances, carefully manage this so that at the end of the year we can work it out. It's not something we want to do, it's not something, that's going to give us, the extreme heartache. It's just going to be difficult, and we'll manage it. And that's the good news, is that we can rely on our staff and our people to work it out.
And I guess this is an example of why we have an emergency fund. That we're not having to use, but these kinds of things, so. Okay, we all set? Okay. Public hearing none. Legislative updates from state reps. I don't see anyone. Town manager report, Eileen?
Okay. The holiday season is upon us, so if you're leaving for a period of time, please call the police department about our house check program, which is a really wonderful thing. The first time I've ever seen anything like this since when I came to Merrimack. Also, please check on your elderly neighbors during the cold snap, and please bring your pets inside. The annual holiday parade and Christmas tree lighting was a big success, with an estimated 600 to 700 people in attendance of the tree lighting. The Parks and Recreation Department's new winter activities brochure is now available. Printed copies may be picked up at Town Hall, the library, or the Parks and Recreation Department. There's a lot of really good and fun things for people to do of all ages. And also, the Parks and Recreation Department would like to thank the Police Department for their assistance with the annual Santa Calling program. This year, 71 children will be receiving a phone call from Santa, which is more than double the amount of children from last year. Wonderful program. Glad you guys know Santa. Thank you.
All set? Okay, there is no consent agenda, nor old business, new business. Matt, you want to come down? Matt Kasparius, donation acceptance to Parks and Recreation for Wasserman Park. Town Council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the amount of $1,309.66 from Boy Scout Nick LaRoche, and I'll let you explain.
Sure. This donation comes, as you said, from Boy Scout Nick LaRoche, who had done the solar lighting project at Wasserman Park earlier this fall. he was able to raise a significant amount of money. He got a lot of his supplies donated, and so as a result, he took what he had left from the project, and he's donating that to the town for the benefit of the park.
Nice. So twice he's given the town.
Yeah.
Question, Bill?
Yes, just a quick question. Nothing's been earmarked. It's just going to go into the Parks and Rec Fund for whatever needs to be paid for?
That's
Yes, Paul?
The money will sit, the money will sit with the other donations that we received from other Boy Scouts and other projects for a project at Wasserman Park at a future date.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Any other questions for Matt? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion. Oh,
Madam-
Jackie, sorry.
Yes, I just want to congratulate you for overseeing it, of course, and the boy Nick for his exemplary fundraising, and I was hoping that some of the companies around here might write his name down for future reference.
Nice. Okay, now I'll accept the motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the town council accept and expend a donation in the amount of $1,309.66 from Eagle Boy Scout
Eagle
Nick
Scout.
LaRoche, who recently completed his Eagle Scout project at Wasserman Park. Funds are being donated for the benefit of Wasserman Park pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15.
Okay, motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Finley Rothaus. Any other comments? Of course, we'll send a thank you, of course, right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 700. Okay, Lauren, you're back up again. Solar exemption ordinance discussion submitted by Assessor Lauren Martin. Town Council to be presented with solar exemption details and to discuss and consider the implementation of a solar exemption to the Town of Merrimack Town Code. Now, we did receive in the backup a listing of the various towns and if they have any exemptions or not, and how much and the like. And we also received a couple of articles to peruse as well as the RSA,
Yes.
so.
I'm digging through my stuff as we are talking because I thought I had something else, but I don't. I guess I have it here. I had sent to the council, and I just want to update it. If I could, I have handouts for you all.
Oh, excellent. I suspect what's going to happen, or at least I hope, is that we're going to have a discussion about the pros and cons of exemptions, because there are. And at the end, we can, as a council, decide to do something or nothing, but I think it's worthy. I've received phone calls, people who have, I'm sure everyone else has too, people who have put solar panels on their houses. They're, depending upon the size probably, their assessment would go up to a certain amount, and what they noticed is when the tax bill went out this past December, their assessment, because there was a whole reassessment done anyway, they proportionally increased their assessment as a result of the solar panels, and most did not know that it was going to be increased,
Right.
even though they were never told they were not going to be increased.
Right,
It's-
right.
So that kind of discussion.
I mean, I think and I'm not sure exactly when, I was before the council, and we briefly talked
We did
about that we
briefly.
would be, I think one of the questions was, are we going to expect anything contentious with this update? And I think I said there wasn't going to be anything too bad, but that this was obviously something new. And we did not have an exemption in place at the time. And I'm not here to advocate for or against an
that's for us
exemption.
to discuss, yeah.
I want to provide you all the information, and then obviously that's a decision for the council to make, so I don't really have a position one way or the other. Here to answer questions, concerns on that. The sheet that I just handed out was, and I had sent one via email, but then we have been updating it. One side of the page has all the properties that were picked up and assessed for a solar array on their property, what the associated assessment was for that, and what the resulting tax was.
And by the way, I just had a curiosity question that you weren't there, but I talked to Tracy and Mike, right? Or Mark?
Yes.
Okay, Mike. And I wanted to know, are they informed from the building department of any time a solar permit? And yes, they are. They are officially notified so that they know to put that on the card. Because I didn't know if it was a hit or miss or that there was actually a procedure, and there is.
Right.
I'm
There's,
sorry.
and that was, I guess, some of the question that I got back as well, was, I believe, during another discussion, it was indicated that there were so many properties with solar. What we uncovered was that there were 130 properties total that had applied for a building permit. We picked up and assessed from that permit list. We went out and visited those properties last year during the update, and we picked up and assessed 48 properties with solar arrays on them.
So of the 130, only 48 were actually built?
Last year, correct. They were 130 to date, I should say. So part of those,
Okay.
There
So
was a-
48 of those was just recently added.
there were 47 additional properties that have
Okay.
been added for 2000 that will be added, I should say, for
Gotcha.
2017. And there still may be some more.
Okay.
And that's where, if you look on the page that has the 2017 solar yet to be assessed, we're putting in estimated assessments based on what they've put in and an estimated tax. But there's a few holes in there. There's properties that were duplicated on that building permit list, and there were properties that a permit was applied for, but then either they chose not to add the solar or the permit itself was withdrawn. So it has been a cause for concern, obviously, because the town doesn't have an exemption, and the solar companies are promoting the solar, but not necessarily telling the taxpayers that they could be assessed for this feature. So the total so far to date that we have would be 95 properties going forward for 17, and as I said, that's changing daily and will right up till April 1st of 2017. The total assessment associated with the 2016 and 17 so far is $1,968,200 with a tax, and it's an estimated tax, obviously, because we don't know what the 2017 rate will be yet. But that equates to about $44,855 in taxes.
Now, this is for all the ones that you know about.
Correct, to
Okay.
date. Last year, we also did a full field review, and we did go to all of those properties that had solar permits on them. So we did view every property to ensure they did actually install solar.
Now, the assessment on solar, is it based upon size, the amount of panels, or?
It is based on the amount of panels. The
Okay.
amount of panels correlate to how many kilowatts
Okay.
of energy that the solar can produce. So that's how
Gotcha.
it's valued. And right now, we're using a cost approach on that. The ultimate goal, and there's been plenty of studies out there that solar adds value to property, and the best way to quantify it will be through sales. So if you look at a place like California or Florida that have already had a lot of solar, Berkeley's done studies, there's been plenty of studies, and they can do a paired sales analysis. So a property with solar sells today, and then it sells again in a year, the only difference being property sold, and the only difference being that on the second sale it had solar. You can quantify the value of the solar array. The difficulty here is we really have only started seeing solar fairly recently, so we have to have some time to be able to see properties sell and then resell again with no other changes to be able to really quantify it through sales. We do see them advertised that way, some of the properties, but we need to be able to build a database of sales, because that would be the optimal, is once we get the information from sales. So right now we're using replacement cost, new, less depreciation. What is being assessed on them is less than what they're actually paying for them, but it's closer to a true cost than it would be to anything market derived at the moment.
Okay, go ahead. Dan?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at this, it reminds me of swimming pools. So if you have a house and you spent a built-in swimming pool, which is the most expensive, and it could range from the lowest of 20-something thousand to 40,000, And that's a hard dollar asset. So if your house was $250 and you put in a $40,000 pool, now the potential, the house value is $290.
Yep.
As an assessor, do you view the solar array as a similar asset being placed on the house?
We do.
Okay, so I bring that as an analysis to our future discussion on where we go on an exemption amount. It seems to me that even the solar companies, it's irrelevant whether they got a special deal, the panels came for free, they had a special promotion, and instead of spending $30,000 on their solar panels, they only spent 10.
Right.
And they can show you a contract and they can show you all this information, but the fact is, you know, the real value is 30 and not 10.
Right.
But you view this as the same as you would a swimming pool.
Right. And that's why I say I'm not here to advocate for or against.
Right,
I
right.
want the council to have as much information as possible about it. You know, I hear proponents for it talking about how green it is and the thing, you know,
Right.
all the reasons why solar is great. But then I hear opponents to it, you know. Actually, one of my town administrators said to me, you know, if I want to spend $30,000 on a brand new kitchen or an in-ground pool, I'm going to get taxed for it. And why should the person who makes a choice to put on solar get an exemption, and the guy who decides to put in the pool or the kitchen get taxed? So I
That's
hear
the
both
fairest-
sides, and they're
that's the fairest
pretty
of
fair.
questions, right.
You know, but that's why I'm here to give you all the information, and then you have the hard decision to make. I just give you all the information, and
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the biggest kitchens, as we all know, or more, you could spend $30,000
Easily.
very easily on a brand new kitchen. So it's a good analogy, I think, that we'll all have to consider when the time comes. Thank you.
And the other information that I did give you that shows you all of the towns and the date they adopted solar exemption and what they gave for it. Some of the early
Really
adoptions of that.
Very varied.
Oh, it did.
Very varied.
And if you look at the date of when they adopted it, so if you look at some of them that went in originally, you know, right when that exemption was available, a lot of those were based on cost. We would, you know, we've strongly recommended to towns that if they're going to adopt an exemption, it should be based on assessed value. And particularly now when you're seeing a leased system, say, they may have no cost directly to them that they've spent out of pocket. And the solar company could provide you a bill that showed that it cost $30,000. And in that type of situation, if it's based on cost, the taxpayer may not have bore any cost in it. So if the board or if the council wants to consider that, we would urge you to at least look at the assessed value. And a lot of the more recent adoptions of the exemption are based on assessed value, and then they may have a cap to it.
Right.
So they say 100% of assessed value up to $10,000 or up to $20,000. So that way you're giving some benefit and maybe not all.
Bill, and
Yep.
then Jackie?
The question I would have is there any science as to how do you arrive at what is a fair, what is a fair figure for the council to consider from a policy perspective? Because you've got some communities, 100% of the assessed value, 50% of the assessed value capped at $5,000. Anything not to exceed $5,000. I mean, it's all over the place with these communities that
Well,
you've
I
given
would-
us. I mean, I certainly,
Just to add a perspective to what you're saying, Bill, of the 234 total municipalities, 43 go on assessed value. Okay?
right, and the others are like
The
100% of
others
the cost,
are,
or cost,
right,
or a percentage of the
installation and all
cost.
the rest.
So, for me,
Small.
having done, and we've talked offline about this, and I put a lot of homework into this, I almost think that if it's something that the council wants to consider, I certainly would be looking to you for, based on your knowledge of the industry and the assessments in this community and what this community is going to look like 5-10 years down the road, I really would be looking to you for some direction as to what the council should be considering as to what would be equitable in terms of what an exemption might look like for the town of Merrimack.
That would be hard for her to do, though, because really, we have to make the decision.
Right, we have to
whether-
make the decision, but
even what configuration would be up to us, not her.
I understand, but I certainly would want some guidance on how
I
we
think
would
we're
arrive.
on- I think we're on our own. That's
Well,
my,
so- now that's the answer I'm looking for.
Yeah, because the statute's a piece of junk.
And
And-
that's not the
I
first time
agree.
you've said that.
And just by looking at the list that we all got, I mean, they're out of the 234, 43 do exemptions, and quite a few of them have other kinds of combinations of things.
It's-
You know,
it-
the first 10,000 is, well, and then the
I
second.
agree.
I mean,
And
we-
it's been left, obviously, as you can see by the determinations in here of what was granted. It is all over the board. And I know you asked me that question directly, and I wrestled with that on
It's not even
how
her place
to.
to tell us
And-
whether
how
it should
to
or shouldn't.
And if
advise
I,
you
and if I'm in contempt, I apologize
No,
for
you're
putting you
not
on the
in
spot, so.
And I never said contempt.
Well, it's my word, Madam Chair, and I stand by it. I mean, but the absurdity of it is, somebody could propose 5% of the assessed value capped at $1, and you could pass it, and that's legit according to the law.
That's correct.
And that's absurd.
That's correct.
Right, and I think once you consider if that's the route you want to go down, you know, there's towns that exempt it 100%, there's towns that, you know, do you want to wait? It's hard, I guess, ultimately, first, if you make that decision, but to try to point you to a number, and I tried to look at communities of similar makeup, of
Yeah.
similar size, and those were still all over the
Still
board. There
all over
wasn't
the
really any consistency, and it was just the kind of the whim of the Board of Selectmen or the council in those communities, what they felt it meant to their community. But, I mean, I don't envy you your position to even have to make this decision, because it really isn't, there's no real science there.
The other question I would ask, though, is it the purview of the council to come up with two sets of exemptions where you could have a residential exception and a commercial exemption?
I don't believe there's that latitude
No,
within the
it's
statute.
residential
So it's
only.
just straight residential? Okay, thank you.
And is it also
It's
true?
not straight residential. It would apply to commercial properties as well. If you read the statute, if they were to put a solar energy system that would provide energy to that building, they would qualify for said exemption if one was put in. We talked earlier about a commercial solar farm where energy would be sold elsewhere. That would be a taxable entity. That wouldn't qualify for an exemption. But if Anheuser-Busch, I shouldn't say his names out loud, but if Anheuser-Busch decided to put solar energy onto their property for their sole use, they could qualify for an exemption as well.
If
you had one.
Had one in place?
Yep.
Okay.
Jackie?
Okay. Well, as the owner of a solar house, I can only reflect on what it means for people like ourselves who are leasing the solar panels. And as far as value is concerned, the panels are, our assessment, 27,000, is based on the number of panels, and each panel valued at, I think it was $750 as their cost. But we could have purchased them all at 15,000. So that struck me as something that should be corrected as an equitable problem. And I like the idea of the assessment because cost-wise, it didn't cost us anything, and it
Right.
costs other people the full 15,000. So that's an equitable way to go about it through the assessment, I think. But we wouldn't run into a nonsensical kind of a thing like Bill brought up about the dollar, because we can just sit and wait and just keep on going the way we have been. So there's no reason for a town to act on something that was just to put an ordinance in, I think. But the other thing, as a broker, as a real estate broker, the swimming pool, the swimming pool thing, you know, I have literally had buyers look at the pool, turn around and go back out the front door. And that is a very commonplace. And I would assume Peter and I decided to do it, and I'm sure other people perhaps in this room decided to do it for our own satisfaction, to be green and to perhaps contribute a little bit to that, and to for our own enjoyment, not thinking that anyone would ever be interested in coming and buying our house and wanting to assume that lease that we have. I think it's a somewhat of a detriment, truly. And
With the lease Solar panels, it could be. We've been tracking it. There's a lot of issues with the lease panels,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I mean, buyer beware, I think, when you're being sold a bill of goods. I don't think a lot of people understood fully everything with the lease, and I don't think we understand fully everything, and it's going to play out.
Yeah, it
Don't
was
the lease
something that-
companies they got the tax credits.
They get the tax
You don't get the
credit,
tax
they
credit.
get the
Correct.
energy,
They get them.
they get the
Correct,
full
they do.
benefit of it.
They're
And-
running a
That's
generator
why it's free.
on our roof and other roofs around Merrimack. And, we have an ordinary gas furnace, but if we put in a state-of-the-art supersonic one for, $20,000, I doubt very much that our assessment would truly reflect that. We have a furnace, they have a furnace. All things being equal, I doubt that it would add very much to the assessment. To me, it's a utility on our roof. It's simply our electrical system.
It helps reduce your utility costs, so that is what is being touted as the what people would be willing to spend in the market to get a benefit from the solar is a reduced utility.
But with the additional taxes that will add about $600 to our tax bill, it takes
You're not
away
saving anything.
and adds more money. Because our savings are estimated, I'm sorry to be personal about this, but it's the only way I know to illustrate this. Our savings were estimated to be $400 or $500, not a lot, but as I said, we wanted to do the right thing and perhaps make our contribution.
So the tax may negate that, yep. I
Yeah, well,
understand.
it not only negates it, but frankly costs us a couple $100 more a year. And so I would like to see something equitable and really based on common sense and with the realization that if we want to put a $30,000 kitchen in or something like that, the assessment wouldn't even fully, because you are sensible and you know the market and you know that I'm never going to get $30,000 back for that fancy kitchen, but I might add $10,000, okay.
Finley?
Well, that's actually what I was going to say. I didn't believe Dan's analogy of the swimming pool was really accurate, because if you do have a $40,000 swimming pool, it won't necessarily increase the value of your home $40,000.
Right, because cost doesn't always relate to
Right.
market. So you may spend 40, but it may increase the value 20.
Right, and I think once we do build up a little bit of a history in this part of the country, we'll have a better understanding, a more accurate understanding, I suspect, of what the real value will be to your home. And the way you're figuring it now is cost whatever, that's your
Right.
thing. I understand the basics of it, but to go deep, I can't do it. But so I think in the end, that's where it will work out. I think most people do it for, as you've said, for the green component. They, you might recognize that it's a wash, or it might even cost me a little more, but I've done my part.
Right.
And I think that really is the biggest, part of the solar industry situation for residential and all, but anyhow.
Tom?
Yeah, there's a issue here that we're dancing around, and that is the whole piece of basic microeconomic theory. There's no free lunch. Somebody's got to pay for this. So if we take it off the tax base, all the other taxpayers that don't have this, for whatever reason, okay? Most of them would be economic, some of them might be location, a bunch of other things, they would be subsidizing those, literally subsidizing those people who put this in, okay? Like we do for every other exemption we have here. And, we're constantly saying, we're starting our budget process, and we're constantly wringing our hands about, how do we manage the services in the town and deal with the revenue issues that we have to deal with. And here we are, contemplating another reduction in what we would have for a source of revenue. Okay, so it's really something that we really need to take into consideration. It's not as expensive as the elderly exemption. It's not as expensive as the veterans exemption. Okay, but over time, and the impact on the electrical system is at this point negligible, hardly anything at all. And the irony of all this is, you're leasing yours for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Within a,
I heard a statistic that it cost 5 times the amount that you will save over 20 years to manufacture, transport, and install from start to finish those panels on your roof. So how green is green at that point?
I don't think that number is correct, but
It is-
doesn't sound right, but.
Well, I unfortunately, it was, I didn't copy down
Yeah,
the
yeah.
source of it. But the fact of the matter
That's
is,
more.
by the time you extract the stuff out of the ground and you manufacture it and you transport the stuff you take out of the ground to the factory and all the other things, and you're bringing them in from China, okay, so you're shipping them across the ocean. You know, the amount of money that you're really saving out of this whole thing is your personal savings, but it's costing 5 times that to produce them. So, it's the same thing with these types of technologies. You gotta take, looking at the total cost of the whole process and where it goes. And people don't, all they take a look at is the stuff they're putting on the roof at $750 a panel. They don't look at, what it took to get the stuff out of the ground and all the other pieces that go with it, to put that together. Plus,
but
plus you're getting the 16-cent subsidy from Eversource per state law, which will be changed in the next session, by the way. There's several bills in there to make something on that, so that's gonna
Merry
get,
Christmas to you, too.
well, hey, this is the way, the field is fluid. It's a new
And it will
technology.
change, yeah.
It's no different than a cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay, a better analogy, Dan, might have been a cell phone. Okay, or how much did your first computer cost you compared to now?
Or your first TV.
Okay, or the first color TV.
Color
Okay,
TV.
Yeah.
$99 for my first calculator.
yeah, well,
That's right. Just to
So-
follow up with you, Tom.
just keep in mind that there are other impacts here. Okay, and there's all kinds of stuff out there that people are coming in. Oh, you should give us a tax abatement on this. I'm already paying for that tax abatement, people. I'm already paying somewhere in my federal income taxes. I'm paying for that $3,000 thing that's going to go to the company because you're leasing yours. Okay, we're paying for it. You're paying for it through the electric company because they're required to buy the power from you at a rate that it costs an alternate power source to produce that kind of energy in this market. Okay, in this market. And it was a rate that was set, maybe 10 years ago, based on the wood-fired industry. So, there's a lot of things that we have to think about in doing this whole thing.
Not anymore.
Well, one of the things, I just wanted to follow up on what Tom said first. One of the things that I do want to, in thinking about that big con, Tom, and I understand, the only way I would consider anything is if it would be put up to ballot. Because it's the citizens who are going to be making up that money that is exempted. And I would want the public to be able to make that decision. Okay? Yes, I think it's a wonderful gesture to encourage those kinds of things. So that's the pro side. The con side is that the rest of the citizens have to pay for that lack of assessment or that decreased assessment. Therefore, they should have the voice in making the determination. So if someone were to make a motion, unless it has to do with going to a ballot, I will not agree to it. So go ahead, Jack.
Yes, I do want to make my major point is that the houses are not worth that. So it's not an abatement. It's just simply returning the assessment to where it should be of the real value. The house, my house is not worth $27,000 more in
So
the
Jackie,
market.
you saying that the...
It should be market. Assessments are based on market value.
Right, which is what
Which is
it
what we're
is.
trying to arrive at.
Exactly,
We
exactly. And-
still believe we've valued the properties at market value. So if you're exempting a portion of that, you would be decreasing the value.
It would be decreasing the value only to where it should be and not.
Well, that we
Well,
would
that's-
maybe
that's
disagree on,
debatable.
but yeah.
I don't think that's debatable to me. With a veteran's exemption, your house is valued at, $250,000, and you get a real exemption. You get a real exemption from the real value. But with this, I'm arguing that the value is not true.
So are you suggesting, Jackie, that there should not be an increase in the value based upon having solar panels?
I think that there should be, but it should be based on reality. Like, my panels, I know that they're only 8 months old or a year older, so they were worth $15,000 when we put them in.
Okay,
And
now
not
is that the
27.
cost of the panels or installation?
Oh,
Also.
and the whole thing, we could have purchased the whole thing.
I know, but was $15 a panel the cost of the panel plus installation?
No, that was, yes, everything.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've gathered data statewide
Yeah.
from all of the solar companies. The average cost to install a panel is about $1,000 a panel. That's the cost. We're assessing them $750, $800, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark per panel. But the true cost, if you want to go out and buy it right now, call Solar City, Sun, any of them, it's about $1,000 a panel installed.
And for accurate, like the pool, like the kitchen.
It's
solar
gonna vary
panels, we
slightly
will know
from-
at some point in history.
Because this is really based, it should be
Not
based
distant
on,
future. Right, but it's, ultimately,
Market-
we want it to be what the real
market
value is
value.
of your home.
And
that's
that
the
will
debate.
happen.
the market
Yeah.
value and not cost.
Tom?
So Lauren, you mentioned earlier, thank you for that last piece of information, in fact.
Absolutely.
If it's about 3/4 that you're assessing today. You mentioned earlier that states that have had solar for a length of time have been able to work an assessment or a value for the market. Can you not compare your numbers against their relative numbers and get an idea of what maybe the
It's tough.
resale value would be?
It's such a, comparing property values in New Hampshire to property values in California or Florida,
Well,
it's
I'm
so
talking
difficult.
about delta costs, though, for solar.
Yeah, and I was looking at that article from Berkeley today. So depending on where, it definitely had differences in value. They had some studies done in Pennsylvania, that on average it was adding, $19,000 in Pennsylvania, and it might be $35,000 per property on average in California. So it does give us some indication. But the size of the system, how much it can power, there's a lot involved in it as well, because obviously a relatively small system may not be adding the $35,000 in value. But you can get at least what it's adding in value, but it may be a little bit more significant than in California than it would be in New Hampshire. But
Well, and I agree, but that's where the science comes in, because now you can look at percentage deltas and you can look at size, the cost per square foot of coverage.
Absolutely, and do that
all
comparison,
Wattage
yep.
outputs and all those kind of things. And so there ought to be some way to generate a formula that gives you an idea if 3/4 of the cost is close to, what we expect the resale value of the home to change.
And if I compared it to what we're looking at in Pennsylvania, which would be more comparable than obviously
California,
someplace like
yeah.
California, that was what they were experiencing in that survey that we looked at. When we look at what we're on an average basis, we're right in line with that as well.
And using a panel count, are the panels all sufficiently equal as far as
The
power
newer
output
systems
and-
are. The older systems are a little bit different, so they'd be depreciated for that. The newer systems are all relatively comparable in what their output is, how many kilowatts
per panel?
per panel.
And costs and factors and all
Correct.
that good stuff. Okay.
Is it
So-
depreciation over years? I'm sorry, Tom.
Yes, if we're looking at a cost approach, that's what it would be, is replacement cost, new, less depreciation. Obviously, the systems predominantly that we're looking at are all brand-new systems, so there's no real depreciation. We would be looking at that again in 5 years when we did the update. That
sorry.
depreciation cycle would come in just like anything else. You're reanalyzing everything once every 5 years.
They lose a certain percentage of efficiency over time,
Correct.
so.
Yeah, they would, and so I understand the depreciation, I think that's great, and the people like Amherst that implemented something back in '76 must have at least one old system
Right.
that would be completely depreciated away by now,
And we have a couple here in town, one or two. I'm not going to say there's a lot, one or two, and One we know of, and it's completely, it's still there, but it's defunct at this point. It's not really generating anything now. So it's up there on the property with little
Probably
to
more
no
danger than
value on
good
it.
at this
Exactly.
point, but-
It needs to come off. So there's some cost, a detriment to take it off at this point.
And does that appreciate the value of the house having that old system up there, which is a liability for an owner?
I think it's a net zero at the moment, but because that also
could
would be
get there.
unknown. But there is some. I mean, there's other concerns, liability, fire concerns, things of that nature, obviously. And if it's sitting there, would a potential buyer be concerned that they need to take that down and assume that liability? Probably.
Okay.
Lots of things to consider.
There are, and it's, your job is amazing as far as being able to come up with an assessment. And I know Jackie is coming from the opposite side of the fence, because as a Realtor, you're trying to get that value up there. How do you determine that is extremely difficult. But, she feels hers is worth $15,000, you're telling her $27,000. It's always a balancing act to figure out where that
Right.
comes down. And that's why people can challenge their assessments and
Every year.
negotiate it as best they can. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Yes, Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lauren, from an administration perspective, I get how if the council were to do an assessed value, we would probably treat it like the Wills exemption. It would be something that would lower the tax rate, and then the bill would be generated as such. How would we figure out somebody's cost? I mean, if we were to go to a cost kind of exemption, would literally property owners be walking in with copies of their leases or copies of their bills or what have you, and basically saying they'd be getting 50% of the cost? And how would
That's
we
why I would
administrate that?
definitely steer you away from
And
that
I
option.
get that, but I'm not saying that I would go for a cost option, but how
Difficult.
would it function?
I have a town that adopted it probably in the 70s. It was 100% of cost. Taxpayer walked in the door recently with an invoice for $110,000. At the time, this community was not assessing solar panels, so there was no added assessment to the property, and the taxpayer is now looking for an exemption of $110,000. And the way their warrant was worded, I don't know how you can't grant an exemption of $110,000, of which they spent less than half of that themselves. The rest was actually through credits and whatnot, so there was no out-of-pocket cost of $110, but that was the cost of the system, and that's how their warrant was
Well,
worded.
that's what the
So,
companies are
And
getting.
if the warrant was approved, they basically would have been writing the taxpayer a check.
yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, it's going to be even more fun when Tesla gets his batteries going.
Yes.
It's true. Yes, Jackie?
I do have a philosophical issue that too much interference, not with this property tax, I'm not really referring to that, but too much interference from government on any new product hinders the performance of the market. For example, if the oil companies and the utilities were going to jack up the electrical prices artificially, it interferes with people's ability to choose through purely economic means and further the marketplace and the free market. That I worry about that too, because I think that the utility companies are going to reach a kind of a drop-dead point when they the poles and so forth and all the provision of the lines is going to make them less profitable.
Any other comments? Does anybody want, yes, Bill?
I do have a comment. I don't mean to throw salt on a wound, but we had a discussion 2 years ago regarding the removal of trees at a certain property so that they could install solar panels. According to the list, that property's not on there, which I thought was,
Are you dropping it down, Bill?
I'm not dropping it down, just making an observation.
Interesting.
They might not have put it in yet.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, because they have to be permitted.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one would hope that there was a permit for that type of installation as it involves so much electrical, and any reputable company is coming in here for the permit. So I would hope that, but now that you say that I'm familiar with that property, I'm going to double check that.
Oops,
Sorry, Lauren.
dropped it there. Okay, any discussion or any motions? I don't have one, anybody? I guess that's.
Do we want to
for further review down
further
the
review?
road?
I mean, I do want to say one thing, Madam Chair. I do agree with you. If it's the council's will to do something like this, I would want the voters to weigh in on it. I absolutely agree
They'd
with
have
you.
to approve it, in my
I
opinion.
agree with you. Because I think Council Mayon's point is well taken.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
it's,
the ones who are
it-
going to have to make up the money.
exactly.
It's the fairest thing, in my opinion, as well. I mean, it puts it before the voters,
So unless
and it
someone
quite
wants
honestly,
to-
it takes the burden off all of you. All you'll be doing is putting it out there. It gives them the.
No,
That-
it's being
that's-
fair.
That's not
It is
necessarily
being
true,
fair.
Lauren, because we still have to craft a
You-
warrant
you would
article.
still have to craft that.
We
yeah.
have to
We have
craft
some
that. Are we doing
suggestions.
100%, 50%, assess, I mean,
All that stuff.
got to do
So
all that
I
stuff
would
if we
like
want to put it to the
propose-
voters.
I would like to propose that if a counselor wishes to propose something for the ballot, I would like to suggest that they come back with that in a future council meeting before the time. When is that? When's, we could. How-
Well,
And I can get you the
There's a certain
language, and
You
then
could-
you can
I
put in the
understand.
verbiage for how much or how.
I'm
or
not
whatnot.
recommending it, I'm
I
just saying
understand.
that in the
I
future.
just, but there's another piece to this, okay? And we're trying to be transparent about this.
Yeah.
If we adopt it, it goes into effect April 1. If we wait until the voters adopt it, it goes in April 1 next year.
Ah,
Correct. That's correct.
okay. I'd still stand with what I say. But
Do you not have
Thank
the
you
op-
for the clarification.
And question for me, do you not have the option, if you put it before the voters this year, to make it retroactive for this year?
Immediately?
I don't think,
I don't know.
So that would be
Yeah, I'm
part
not
of the
sure of the
research that
warrant.
would have to be done if
Yeah.
a warrant article with this, for this ordinance, right?
I'll check on that for you.
So drop dead February, what?
16th.
16th. So there would have to be a counselor, what I'm proposing, a counselor, if someone is so inclined, wishes to develop with the research assistance.
I-
Hold on,
Yeah,
you can respond.
yeah.
By Lauren and Eileen, return with that proposal, probably sometime in January to be able to. But you're right, Bill, all of those specifics would have to be part of the proposal. Jackie?
Yeah, I found something here that if the exemption or credit shall take effect within the town or city on the date set by the governing body or in the tax year beginning April 1st, following its adoption, whichever shall occur first. So either the warrant article or the council sets a date,
So
or
I
it
suspect
it
you
takes
could.
place the following April 1st, either way,
If it's not
whichever's
stated
first.
otherwise, we go to the following
April
April
1st.
unless it's specified in the ordinance,
Yeah.
maybe? Okay, so what's the pleasure? Yes, Dan?
I'm weighing in on your thought. I'm leaning towards having it on the ballot, but I also wanted to say, I don't see the urgency at this time, right now, that it's something that needs to be done this year. Maybe we just need more data to come in as well, and take it up during our next workshop and get better prepared for the following 2018, but.
So I won't expect anything from you. Tom?
In light of the full transparency that Tom was talking about a minute ago, I think there's several ways that this could go forward. The council could adopt a policy, which I'm hearing the council's not very interested in doing. The council could put together a warrant article sponsored by the council and put it before the voters, but it could also come through as a petitioned warrant article.
You're correct.
The
Thank you.
town council could either decide to put that on the warrant, or if there were sufficient signatures, it could go on the warrant by default at whatever the petition warrant article wording was. So, I mean, if there is issue or concern or desire to put it on the warrant, there's reason for us to think about whether we wanted to come through the council itself directly, or we want to look to see if anybody in the public
Citizen.
wants to put through a petition warrant article.
And that would have to be done by February 14th, Paul?
Yeah, the last, the last day to accept petition warrant articles is Tuesday, February 14th.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for saying that. You're absolutely right, Tom. Okay, anything else? No?
Just food for council's thought, only because I've done some work on this, that if we were to look at doing something like this, I have thought that 50% of the assessed value capped at $20,000 based on the numbers that I see here makes sense. Based on what the average assessed values of properties with solar. I'm not saying that as an endorsement, but I'm just saying that was, and, something to put before the voters, that would be something that makes sense based on what has been provided to us this evening.
So, in the future, you may end up coming back to this council?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay, thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Lauren,
I know
thank you.
there's no right or wrong, it's just facts.
Just information, absolutely.
Thank you.
And now Lauren can leave. She wants to stay for the rest of the evening. Okay. Wants or needs. Okay. Don Tromala, why don't you come on up, because you're the next two items. Don is the Deputy Public Works Director, Town Engineer. The first one is road acceptance of Windy Hollow Circle. At the Planning Board meeting on December 6, 2016, per subdivision regulations section 5.01.1, parentheses F, the Planning Board has released the performance bond in favor of the 2-year maintenance bond and recommended acceptance of Windy Hollow Circle by the Town Council. Acceptance of the road is conditioned upon receipt of the 2-year maintenance bond in the amount of $55,982.
So moved.
Oh. Do you want to say anything about it?
Second.
I guess someone doesn't want to be late. Okay, so
He wants to
motion
catch the
made by
game
Bill
tonight.
Boyd, second by Tom Mahan, and let's hear if there's anything you want to say. There isn't. Tom, did you have a question? I wasn't prepared for the fact.
I don't even know where
this would
Windy
be-
Hollow Circle is, and I didn't make that meeting. Obviously, Bill Boyd went in my place, so I wasn't familiar with what they were discussing there. You need to be at a mic. Sorry.
There you
Now
go.
it is.
It's a cluster subdivision that was done off Tamazian Drive. And-
Collector subdivision? Is that what you said?
Cluster.
Cluster.
Cluster, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Optimization, okay. And the road is sufficiently done that the DPW is comfortable with taking over responsibility for maintenance,
Yes,
winter maintenance and all that kind of stuff?
yes.
Okay. I mean, so what's the impact to the town of our accepting a road like this? Is just the cost of plowing, or is it, I mean, what?
For the next 2 years, there'll still be the maintenance bond. That is what the $55,000 bond is.
Would still exist, but the town,
It still exists.
until today, the town is not responsible for plowing the road or anything, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. So now we will take over plowing the road.
So we're just adding mileage to our plowing,
Correct.
effectively, plus maintenance.
Plus-
Streetlights? There are streetlights, or are they gonna add streetlights, or?
No.
No streetlights.
I can't imagine there's any streetlights on it. On a subdivision road? There might have been.
I don't believe there are.
Typically,
Not
unless it's a
usually.
major
We're
road.
hearing no. There's a head going like this in the back. I'm sorry, Eileen?
What I was just saying is that there are other things normally that come along with a town accepting a road. for instance, in a town that collects trash, now they collect trash on that road, and now they, you know, that kind of thing. So that was, I put that bug in Dan's.
Any town
Dan's ear.
services
Any
would
town
now be
services.
extended to that road.
Yes.
Yeah, now the school
Finley?
buses can go down there.
Oh,
Right, it's
Done.
basically, the road is complete, and we believe it's in the shape we desire it to be on a completed project, and so they've
we need to
released.
officially accept it.
Right, we're releasing that performance bond, because that work is done, and this is just for potentialities, I suppose.
That's been released. We're just accepting it as a town
But
road.
it's not released until we get a performance bond.
Is that what you're asking for, is
I
the
mean, a
town
maintenance
council
bond.
to release?
What the planning board released.
Planning
the-
board already released it.
The planning board released the performance bond, and there is a maintenance, 2-year maintenance bond in its place. So for the next 2 years,
Not until we accept it, though.
No, it's there. They're
It's-
just asking the town council to now accept it as a
now
town
accept the
road.
road.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Who would have known there would be such discussion over accepting
Well,
the road?
I wanted to try and make it as clear as I could for all of us to better understand,
And I
which is
do
why
now.
I'm asking the
I'm
questions.
just saying, the interplay is interesting. Oh, we have additional information. Kyle,
Just to clear it up, the planning
Who's the
board doesn't
director of
have
public
authority to accept a road.
Right.
Either the governing body or in a town meeting type system, the town folks at town meeting are the only ones who can officially accept a road.
Right, and subsequently, I thought, or I was incorrect in my thought, that, that those other processes did not occur until the acceptance, right,
The bonds are in the planning board's purview.
right. No, and
So they did
I
happen.
understand that
Yeah.
now, I just thought that it all happened after the acceptance, so that was my misunderstanding.
Okay.
are we done?
We
A
can vote on
motion
that
has
sucker
been
now.
made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Tom Mahan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 700. Road acceptance of Crow's Nest Circle. Planning board meeting on December 6, 2016, per subdivision regulations. Again, sections 5.01.1, parentheses F. The planning board has released the performance bond in favor of the 2-year maintenance bond and recommended acceptance of Crow's Nest Circle by the town council. Acceptance of the road is conditioned upon receipt of the 2-year maintenance bond in the amount of $36,741.
Move acceptance.
Motion by Bill Boyd, seconded by Dan Dwyer. Any discussions?
I think we understand.
Not this time.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 700.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next. Come on down, Tim. Economic Revitalization Zones, known as ERZs, for Southern Daniel Webster Highway Corridor and 15 Karen Street, submitted by Community Development Director Tim Thompson, request town council authorization to submit application to the New Hampshire Department of Resource and Economic Development to amend or to add to the Southern New Hampshire Highway ERZ and 15 Karen Street ERZ. And I just want to comment, Tim, your submission of information is amazing. I mean, much more than I could have hoped for. So you were very thorough, is my point.
Well, so, thank you, Madam
Which is going
Chairman.
to help us prepare for this, at least it did for me, so.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the council. As you all are relatively aware of, this is not the first time I've been before you for one of these economic revitalization zone presentations. Essentially, what I'm asking for the council's permission tonight is to be able to make application to the State Department of Resources and Economic Development to add a portion of land that's located in between two existing ERZs today to incorporate land that is primarily the impetus for this project is a company called Spraying Systems from Hudson, New Hampshire, that's looking to move into the GTAT building off of Daniel Webster Highway and utilize a majority of that space for their company. They are an industrial developer of spray nozzles for a variety of different applications. They are looking to purchase the property, lease a small part of the building to GT for an undetermined amount of time, but they'd be moving their workforce and expanding here into Merrimack. Very good manufacturing company. In the conversations we've had with the company and with the state folks up at DRED, they indicated their interest in becoming part of an ERZ. As the last time I was here, we created the ERZ to incorporate the BAE Systems property. We created that large ERZ that starts at Anheuser-Busch and makes its way almost to the Nashua Town line down where Nashua Corp and Nanocomp are located. And we also created last year a small ERZ at 15 Karen Street for Space Optics Research Labs, which is located off of Karen Street. So what I'm asking for is to include that small piece of property, that land area that basically starts at the 15 Karen Street property, goes south along DW Highway on the east side of Daniel Webster Highway to the railroad tracks and encompasses the land that's there. That would encompass the GT property, as well as properties along Star Drive and the Boyle Energy facility that's the former Fairpoint building as well.
Right.
So what you have in your packet is basically the application I would make to the state. The one missing piece, as it is always when I come see you, is the approval from the council to be able to do so.
Excellent. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tim, it's just a odd roundabout question in regards to ERZs.
Sure.
I had the occasion to visit the town of Hudson, off of exit 3 from the FET. And I noticed that the town of Hudson put up a sign that says you are now entering an economic revitalization zone. And it mirrors the same sign that I saw off of 102 in the town of Wyndham. And the question is that something desirous that Merrimack wants to do, or are we all that in a ham sandwich and we don't need to do that?
Given the sheer size of what this would be, basically encompassing almost 2 miles of Daniel Webster Highway, it would be kind of difficult to be able to tell when you're in and when you're out of the ERZ. And our other ERZs are along Continental Boulevard, the former Shaw's facility, the old Zyla's, which is now Vault Motor Storage. So they're kind of scattered, and I don't know that there really would be much bang for the buck for investing into any signage for those particular properties.
I mean, it looks like a street sign, to be perfectly honest with you, but I mean, you can't miss it because it's...
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
anyway.
the fact is that site selectors and people who are in economic development, they know which communities have ERZs, they know
Right.
where they're located. I've got it prominently focused on the economic development section of the website. I update the map as we continue to add these, and I feel very comfortable with where we're at with the ERZs.
Right, and we've talked about how developers look at...
Sure, it's
So-
part of the toolbox.
Absolutely. So, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other? Eileen?
A warm welcome to Spray Systems, Inc. Very good company to have here in Merrimack. They, I believe, without revealing too much, they're expanding and using approximately 130,000 square feet and adding several employees. This is a company that is the world's largest manufacturer of spray nozzles and accessories. And so it will be a company that will be another wonderful asset to Merrimack's group of very good, strong companies with a good work number of employees. Thank you.
Just now that I finally have the projector working, the area in blue on the map is the area that I'm asking to be included in the new consolidated ERZ.
You're really just finishing the strip?
Basically, yes.
Basically. Any questions from the council? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, I would move that the Town Council authorize the Community Development Director, Tim Thompson, to submit an application to the New Hampshire Department of Resources and Economic Development to amend the Southern Daniel Webster Highway ERZ and the 15 Karen Street ERZ to include the property as discussed tonight.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, second by
Second.
Tom Koenig. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 700.
Again, thank you very much and appreciate the
Thank you,
continued
Tim.
support.
Thank you, Tim.
It
Appreciate it.
helps when you get all this paperwork ahead. You can do all your preparation when we get here. It really was. Huh? Oh. Okay, presentation of proposed 2017-18 town manager budget submitted by town manager Eileen Cabanal, and I'm sure Paul McCarley's going to be active in the discussion. Will present her recommended 2017-18 budget. And this is the beginning. We're going to get our huge
jump drives later.
hot.
What?
He's saying it gets cold, and I'm saying it's hot. Such is the problem. You want my-
socks on today,
Okay, we're all ears. Sort of.
Come on, you gotta be.
Oh, this is
you-
just beginning. We gotta rip up to it.
It's fascinating stuff. You gotta be honest. As we normally do, what we do is we take the total budget that's been proposed, and we remove those things that are unusual or that kind of skew your viewpoint of comparing one year to another. So we break it down into we take the total expenditures, we take out the capital reserve fund deposits and compare them to capital reserve fund deposits. We take out other capital like police cruisers and those kinds of things that don't necessarily happen every year. Well, the police cruisers do, but anyway, and we always kind of highlight the road infrastructure one. So this one doesn't show the comparison, but the next slide will show the comparisons. Then you have your capital reserve fund expenditures, and that is one that really skews everything, because those are monies that have already been saved, and there's an exact amount of revenue that comes in to make these expenditures. We added another category, state and federal grants, this year, because we've been getting for the bridges, we've been getting state and federal grants, and again, $1,387,000 really skews what the Public Works Department looks like last year compared to this year, for instance. So once again, we take the total expenditures, we remove those other things, we come to an operating budget, we compare operating budget to operating budget, capital reserve fund deposits to capital reserve fund deposits, et cetera. All those different components, we compare them to the prior year. Okay, so we're going to start with the general fund because this is where the tax rate is derived, the general fund. And the general fund is everything that you think of normally when you think of a municipality: police, fire, highway, town clerk, tax collector, public works, snow removal, street lights, all those kinds of things. So this is the general fund, and as I said, this is where the tax rate is derived. So what we're doing right now is, once I've taken all those unusual things out, I wanted you to take a look at the operating budget from one year to the next, because that really shows you what the differences are in a more realistic perspective. So you can see some increases here. We're going to come to a slide that shows why and why those increases are. The total for the operating fund shows an increase of $612,873, as you can see down there at the bottom, or an increase of 2.78%, and that is for the operating general fund operating expenses only. So if we could just flip to the next one to talk about the reasons, and then we'll flip back to that so that you can see why they have, some of them have increased by leaps and bounds and others haven't. So throughout the budget, you will see the contractual raises for 5 of the unions. This is the number that actually showed up if you added up all the warrant articles for that particular year. There was a 3-year contract, so the second year of the contract, if you added them all together for the 5 unions that passed, it comes to $160,000. So that's an increase that you will see spread out throughout the budget. Another thing that you'll see is an increase to our health insurance line. We received a 9.1% guaranteed maximum rate. That's what GMR stands for. That means that the number isn't finalized. It normally is very close to that. It's never higher than that. One of the really strange things that I haven't actually gotten the answer to is, I don't know if Tom, you get these, but the managers have, the town managers have a listserv, and all the, many of them are writing back and forth to each other. What are you getting for an increase? What are you getting? Because they're so alarmed. And by and large, the increases in health insurance are in the, double-digit ranges, from the 15 to 25%. There was one county that increased 22% last year and 25% this year. So it seems to be across the board that the health insurance in the pools that are available to us have increased significantly. This 9.1 was surprising to me because we had changed our health insurance program so significantly. But it is significantly less than most of the municipalities are seeing for an increase. And I also believe that in future years, particularly next year and the year after, you're going to see more realistic numbers for that, because what happens is you have a whole different plan. They have to estimate what your claims are going to be based on your prior claims, when your claims are probably going to be less because you're using your health insurance differently. So then they need to spread out the actual increases over a period of time in order to find out what a realistic number to target is. So anyway, that was kind of a long story, but anyway, so throughout the budget you will see a total of $109,000 in increased health insurance costs. Also, very huge increase in retirement costs this year. Every 2 years, the New Hampshire retirement system, which we're required to participate in as a municipality, raises their rates for municipalities. As far as employees are concerned, in my 20-some-odd years as in the municipalities in New Hampshire, I have only seen the employees' rates raise once. And that was a few years ago. So what happens is the employees' rates generally don't go up at all, except that one time. And who makes up for it is the taxpayer. So, and that's the way that it's set up by the legislature. It's no fault of the employees or the unions or any of that kind of thing. So,
Go ahead, Tom.
Does that always increase, or is that an adjustment based on the performance of the fund?
The performance of the fund is so poor
Well, I
at this,
understand that,
at
but I'm
this
just
point
asking.
that it will keep increasing until they can even, they're in a very precarious situation, and so they're trying to change the benefits, and have done so successfully for future employees.
Right.
But still, they're running such a deficit that they're trying to just take bites out of it. And we'll be seeing that for some time.
So you've never, in your 20 years, you've never seen it decrease? You've always
For-
seen it increase?
I don't know.
There have been occasional decreases.
But it was when, at
Well,
one
I
point,
know,
they
I'm
were
just-
it was 2% for the municipality to pay, and then the state paid some for police and fire and teachers, and now we're paying 100% of the employer cost, and the numbers are now huge.
Oh, I comprehend that. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, when I first got into this, it was a very different labor market, and there was much more turnover in local government. And so when somebody left the retirement system, the employer's contributions stayed in, even though the employee pulled his own contributions out, and they credited those employer contributions toward the employer's liability over the next year. When that started to tighten up in the early 90s, when that kind of turnover stopped, essentially. Okay, and then all of a sudden, now they're seeing that expanded, need to fill those positions, or to fill the money part of that, where before you could count on a certain percentage of that being taken care of by guys that left after because you weren't vested until 10 years. They were leaving at 5 or 6 years or 2 years or whatever.
And now the retirement system keeps that.
Yeah. So,
So everyone in the state has the same rates for these categories. So in the current year that we're in right now, the fire department has the firefighters. The employer only contribution was 29.16% of every dollar in wages. And in 2017-18, it's 31.89% for the employer's portion. That doesn't include the employees, who's around 11 point something percent. The police went up from 26.38% for the employer and up to 29.43% for the employer. Everyone else, meaning like Paul and myself and the DPW guys and everyone else in our municipal government, because there's another category for teachers, was 11.7% for the employer and 12.15% for the 2017-2018. So as a result of those increases, which typically are for 2 years, so we shouldn't see another increase for in the following year, the total of those increases are an increased retirement cost to the community of $168,000, and that's another thing that you're going to see spread throughout the whole budget. Then there's, I'm sorry, did you want to say something, Finley? No. Okay. So not only do we need to take into consideration those things that increased, we also have to show you the things that decreased, so that you can get a better picture of what really is going on. As you know, last year we had a 53rd week of payroll that we had to pay. This year we don't have that. So when we look at trying to reconcile why the budget went up this certain amount of money in total, we need to subtract that out because we don't have that this year. The other thing is compensated absences. That is, what that is, and we talk about that every year, it goes up and down and around and around. What it is when a person is entitled to retire, whether they retire or not, whatever they're entitled to take with them, whether it be their vacation time, their sick time, their whatever they're entitled to, the accumulated amounts of money that they would get when they retired, that needs to be adjusted. So this year in particular, it's gone up a significant amount because there's several people that are turning 60 this year, which is a number that means something to old people. People, not old people.
I got in trouble the last time I
okay.
used those words.
I'm almost 60, so I didn't mean it. So, no,
That's
but
a
I
magical
mean,
number for New
for
Hampshire retirement system is
older
60.
People who used to be people who in the past were able to retire at 60, who now aren't, and the people that came in afterwards were not able to retire until 62 and then 65. So I mean,
There's a population that are meeting
there's a
that number.
population that happens to relate to age, but
We're trying to help you. Let me
okay.
take your shovel.
All right, whatever. So, anyway, compensated absences, it's a factual thing. What
So
it
it's
is
preparation money for people who are going to be retired.
That's right. So if a person leaves, only when they're eligible, because
Right.
we don't know who's going to retire and when. And every year that's reconciled, so there's a pot of money that gets reconciled as people retire. It gets reconciled and modified. One of the initiatives that I am proposing that is different this year is I have added 4 firefighters in my budget, which would equate to 1 firefighter per shift. So, and because of the cost of it, I only put in for a half year. So these, in my budget, I show 6 months of wages and benefits for 4 new firefighters. We'll get into the reasons why that the proposal has been made. The chief has made it to me. We have met dozens of times. Paul has met with him dozens of times. He has collected reams and reams and reams. The chief has collected reams and reams and reams of data. I have also took the opportunity to speak to the command staff as well as the rank and file and the mid-level management to ask them themselves, aside from the numbers, talk to me about what your day is like, how you feel about, the need for an extra person on a shift, with the understanding that that overtime opportunities would be reduced, and they all those things together convinced me that we do in fact need 4 firefighters, in my opinion. So what I would say to you is that when I present the budget to you, I do not present you a budget that came directly from the department heads without any scrutiny. It takes an enormous amount of scrutiny on Paul's part and on my part, discussions with the department heads, and between what they have asked for this year and what I have actually put in the budget, I cut $990 some odd $1,000 out of the requests. I did include this as a half year. So, the 4 firefighters' wages and benefits for a half a year is $175,000. The uniforms for the 4 firefighters are $12,000. Obviously, 100%. You can't just buy half the uniforms. And we've reduced the overtime by $42,000. And there's, again, great deal of analysis went into that based on how many hours need to be worked, how many days of vacation people have, how many, we did it down to the hours. How many times does a person generally take vacation time? I mean, we've been over it to a great degree. So that's a big increase in the budget, and you'll see that reflected when you look from the firefighters' budget last year to this one when we go back to it. So you'll see that in the firefighters' budget. Continuing on, other initiatives that are in the budget or increases to the budget that I have proposed relate to staffing. One is for a technology assistant. We currently have a part-time technology assistant who works for Chuck. As you know, the technology committee has come in and they have concerns about the number of computers that we have and the kind of pieced together systems that we have, and one person running around trying to work on all of it. We must have 200, I don't know how many computers we have, but for one person to try and do that, it's really difficult. So last year we hired Tim as a part-time assistant, and I have proposed him or this position to be full-time for next year. The reason why the increase looks so enormous is because the benefits add an enormous amount of money. So what we do is we include a 2-person plan. Just assume that every time we add a new position, we just assume a 2-person plan because it could be any one of the 3. Which adds another $17,500 to to what it costs if you want to change from a full-time to a part-time, and that's why we have utilized part-time people for as much as we can. What's happening now, though, is because the economy is, the unemployment rate is so low that it's difficult to get people, especially in these technical jobs that are much desired by other companies and everyone. It's difficult to get somebody that's part-time because they can get a full-time job somewhere else.
This may not be the appropriate time, but I'll ask it anyway. Does Chuck and this person, do they deal with the computer devices in the vehicles in the fire and the police? Those computerized?
Yeah, they work with somebody at the fire station and the police station to upgrade those.
So that's part
make
of
sure
the
it's all part of it,
maintenance.
all
Okay.
part of the maintenance.
I was curious.
The second one is, we talked about this before, this is a Parks and Recreation Program Assistant. A couple of meetings ago, I brought to you the concept of changing the secretarial position and moving it up a grade from secretarial up to a program assistant, and I told you that this year, this upcoming budget, I would be proposing a full-time person for the program assistant. So it was going from a part-time secretary to now to a full-time program assistant. And the program assistant, the reason for the program assistant is, as we talked about before, is because there are so many new programs that we have, all times of the day, weekends, evenings, that kind of thing, that Matt, our Parks and Recreation Director, has to attend to himself, and consequently, he puts in way too many hours a week trying to fill that. Now, you can't really ask a secretary to come out on a Saturday night for $10 an hour and spend several hours to take, nor is that in their job description. So he needs someone that is going to be his right-hand person, and as he expands his programs, what he's doing right now is he's going through and he's seeing which ones are, he's trying different ones, seeing which ones are popular, seeing which ones are well attended, and all that kind of thing. And as time progresses, he'll come up with a lineup of things that are, successful programs. And at that time, some of his salary and some of the program assistant's salary will go into that revolving fund rather than be picked up by the general fund. So, in other words, the programs will pick up the tab for the program assistant in the future. Another thing that occurred, as you know, you spent money very not that long ago to turn all the street lights to LED, and you're seeing your savings this year. It's $55,000. So that's something that needs to be subtracted from why we have an increase.
No, they're not all installed
The
yet.
question was, I didn't know a thing. Are they
No,
all
they're
installed?
not all installed. I think we got about 130 of them installed. The subcontractor that is doing the installation had a little bit of an accident. I believe he fell off his roof. So the company that we're working with is looking for another installer to install the rest of them. But by June 30, 2017, we'll have 100% of the lights installed. So for the next year's budget, we'll start seeing a savings. We have several of them sitting in our ambulance garage over there, ready to go. We're just waiting for them to give us a new installer to
Gotcha.
put them in.
Okay.
At some point, will we be adding to the maintenance budget because we take ownership, we own those light fixtures now?
I believe, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're guaranteed for 10 years. So the first 10 years we're underneath warranty. So, if it breaks
10
or
years from
something.
now.
From 10
Yep.
years from now. So we'll have to start looking at that later on down the road.
I won't be here.
Okay, so.
Remind us again how much they are a piece?
It cost $83,000, right? For all of them?
Kyle, do you know the number off the top of your head?
$350.
About $140 each. About
Today's dollars.
Yeah, $140 each, and we have about 640 to 650 lights that we're replacing.
Okay, I was way off on that. Okay, so in the solid waste budget, you will see an increase of $62,000 for the tipping fees. As you know, we have a long-term contract with Waste Management, and this year they're, per our contract, the tipping fee per ton increase went up $1 from $68 a ton to $69 a ton. And also, the actual tonnage that is disposed of has increased. Now, the tonnage has actually increased over time, and we have really not been adjusting for it. So it didn't actually increase by 800 tons this one year. It's just, now we must put it in there for that amount. So, in the past, we budgeted for 7,700 tons, 7,500 tons, and now we're budgeting for 8,300 tons. So, anyway, so the extra 800 tons plus the dollar per ton increase makes the increase for the tipping fees $62,000. So you'll see that in the solid waste fund. Also, the tipping fee, I don't know if you call it tipping fee, but the recycling fee that we're paying is going from $15 per ton to $20 per ton. When we first entered into that market, we hire a company and they come in and they take the recyclable materials and they actually take them away. And used to give us money for that, maybe $5 a ton, 15 at one time. And progressively, the market has softened so that recyclables aren't worth as much, or there's too much of it, a glut of it out there. So we have a contract, and I believe this is the third year of the three-year contract, where we're now paying $20 per ton to dispose of and transfer out $20 1 ton of recyclable materials. So in other words, the tipping fees are only for the disposal. They're not for the disposal and the transfer to the turnkey or wherever it goes. But the recycling is
Everything.
$15 out of here per ton included. I've also decreased the legal budget. We don't use it as much. We use it for
Knock on wood.
we use it for different things. There was one year when we used it for, obviously last year we used more, having to do with Joanna and the pipeline and all that kind of thing. And during negotiations, I very rarely use it. So we've reduced that as an expense, and it's a very reasonable thing to do. Also, Merrimack Rocks and the Business Expo, we've been told that Merrimack Rocks is no longer going to be in place unless someone wants to take it over. Some private entity wants to take it over. So you'll see this $21,000 also as a decrease in revenue. So it's a revenue and an expenditure that comes out.
And the Business Expo has been taken over by the Merrimack Chamber of Commerce.
Oh.
So they're doing the Business Expo.
Okay? I'm sorry, go
Was there a
ahead.
reason that you didn't talk about the library tech service? part-time,
Oh,
full-time?
I'm sorry, yeah, I missed it. So the library tech services is another position that is being recommended to go from part-time to full-time. This is something that Yvette has talked about for at least for a year, last year, and possibly the year before. She's been having a very, very difficult time. It's much like our technology assistant, that this person with technical abilities can come in here and learn how to do the job, and then they go somewhere else where they can get a full-time job for more money. So she has proposed to make this, and as we're trying to make our library more and more modern, we need to have somebody with technical ability to be able to offer people the services that they need. So again, it's mostly the benefits, that are causing the tech services position to go up $59,000 to go from part-time to full-time. Yeah.
Dan?
In just rough numbers, so the salary could be 38,000 and the benefits are 22, or when you're showing 59, that's a total package of salary and benefits.
Only for the difference between
Part-time
part-time
and
and
full-time.
full-time. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, the benefits are probably more like 30. Probably 30,000, and 29 of it is salary. So it's about half and half. So this PPE, don't know what that stands for, but I know what it
Personal
is.
protective equipment.
What?
Personal protective equipment?
Oh.
Look at how well
I
versed
knew what it was. I didn't know what it stood for. But anyway, this is basically for a specialized washing machine from my own, that's my terminology, to extract all of the hazardous material that gets onto the protective clothing of the firefighters. Every fire department that I've ever heard of has one of these because they're just necessary now. It's also not only it also helps to dry them so that they can be ready for the next event if necessary. And what it also does is it helps to protect to extend the life of the equipment because it is properly cared for.
And this is replacing a machine that's 20 years old. So doesn't owe us a thing.
You get the benefit of technology, too, the intervening technology.
So you may have noticed that we have a bit of a different situation here at Town Hall for plowing the parking lots. We are short on our staff at the DPW department because of people being out as well as long-term periods of time, as well as not being able to fill a couple of positions. And it used to be between the DPW staff, highway staff, and the wastewater staff. They were able to come in and plow the parking lots at the fire stations, at Town Hall, at where else? MYA Library, the John O'Leary, and all that kind of thing. But they just don't have the time to get to it when it needs to be done. So, if at all. So we have taken it upon ourselves to hire a contractor to provide that service to see how it works out, and we've added it to the budget for next year. Then this one's kind of interesting. This is something that we've talked about before during our retreats in the summer that we have, is what are we doing from our mechanics perspective with all this new equipment, with technology, computerized diagnostics, and all that kind of thing. We are proposing to purchase computerized diagnostic equipment to be able to do what a mechanic, another mechanic might do to deal with modern equipment. So the police department, in order to send it out, we are now looking to get diagnostic equipment because it's necessary. The town does an excellent job in keeping up with replacing of their vehicles, and because of that, we now have just like with our own vehicles, they require diagnostic equipment. You don't just use your wrench and your, whatever you use, Tom. You told me one time, but anyway.
Two 9/16 wrenches and a screwdriver.
See?
This
That's
is
what
also
he's-
for our big international trucks at Highway. So now we're buying this equipment so that we can work on those vehicles instead of sending them out at X numbers an hour.
Right front quarter.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Also, there obviously weren't as many elections coming up this year.
Thank
So
God.
we,
Think?
so again, you know, you need to
Just one.
see that we reduced elections by that amount. And then there are all kinds of ins and outs and 2,000 here and $500 there and so this miscellaneous number is a number to balance this $30 million budget. So this is the combination of all those things comes to $612,000 additions and subtractions, and let's look at the 3 pages again. Nope.
One more.
Nope, one more. Let's just look at them again. Okay, so here are all. This is page 1 of the changes in the appropriations. This is page 2. And this is page 3, and those things, additions and subtractions, come to $612,000, $873 increase in the operating costs. Now we're going to go back to that chart there, and you see the $612,000 right there. And as you go through and you look to see where the large increases are, you'll see the fire department going up $261,000. There's your firefighters. And you see solid waste disposal going up $81,000. There's your tipping fees. So, various things here and there. And as I said, throughout the budget, you'll see the subtraction of the 53rd week payroll, you'll see the 3% raise, and you'll see increases in health insurance, and you'll see increases in retirement. So those things in combination are what are making these things. Then you can see Parks and Recreation gone up quite a bit. Most of that has to do with this program assistant, $73,000. 59 of it relates to the making the person full-time. Okay? Yeah.
Dan?
I just want to state for the record, for clarity, that of the $600,000 increase, there's 3 items that we have absolutely no control over, and it's the first 3 items.
Go back.
Contractual raises, health insurance, and retirement is a total of $437,000. So that, just for the people at home, there's over a $400,000 increase that we absolutely have no control over, unless we want to take an approach of cutting things from other things to make a level-funded budget, which is up for discussion, as always, when the budget time comes. But we go into this next year knowing that over $400,000 is really beyond our control at this point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so first we looked at the operating costs. Go back to the first spreadsheet, the colorful one. That one. Okay. So we looked at the last column, the operating requests. That's the one that we just looked at. Now we're going to look at each of those individual columns from last year, comparing last year to this year. So we just did the operating one. And this shows the capital reserve fund deposits is the first part of this. So that pink line down at the bottom, you see an increase of $85,000 in deposits to capital reserve funds. Councilor Koenig made a very good point when we were going through the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, as to why is it so good for us to keep increasing our deposits to capital reserve when they used to be $1 million and now they're almost 1.7 million. And the answer to that, I didn't have the facts in front of me. I knew the concept, but I didn't have the facts in front of me. The issue with this is that over the past many years, since 2007, 2008, we've been putting in very small amounts of money, sometimes as little as $300,000 into our capital reserve, while at the same time taking out $1.5 million from our capital reserve fund. So we've been depleting them. So on an average over those years, we were putting in on an average of $1 million into our capital reserve and spending $1.5 million every year as, you know, for expenses. So this is more in keeping with what we need to do if we want to keep up with our capital reserve funds. And so they don't deplete to nothing, and so that they can adequately pay for in cash for vehicles and road bridges and that kind of thing. We will need to use this method. So to give you a perspective on that. Approximately in 2007, 2008, we had almost $7 million collectively in our capital reserve funds, and now we have about $3 million because we are putting too little in and taking out what we needed. And that's why I have always advocated for making sure that we find a place in our budget for an adequate amount of money to put in there and not make the easy decision to yank out $100,000 out of there because it seems painless. But over time, it will be very painful, and you will be doing things like bonding or adding it to your operating budget or something. So that's why I always, when I look for cuts, I try not to go here. So that's the reason for the increase in capital reserve funds. A lot of them are replenishing the funds. Most of them have to do with equipment. We haven't been keeping up with the equipment increases in costs for fire trucks and ambulances and DPW equipment over the years. We haven't been putting sufficient amount of money into the capital reserve funds, but at the same time, we've been taking that money out. So when we get into the budget, and we get into it in detail, we'll go through those, and I'll show you the ins and outs over the years of what has happened, how much we've been putting in over the years, and how much we've been taking out. So there's an increase there that I'm proposing of an $85,000 increase into the capital reserve fund, which is basically the savings accounts to pay for these items in cash. Other capital is another category on that first sheet that I showed you. It's just kind of unusual things that we don't do every year. So we put it in a category by itself. So, for instance, the fire station repairs, we had $40,000 in the budget last year. We don't have it this year, so we're subtracting that as you know, comparing one year to another. Parks and Recreation, they've increased what they're requesting for other capital. The police vehicles, instead of having police vehicles, because we now don't have to pay for the fit-up, are costing less. So in 2016-17, 3 cruisers were $111,000. That's so?
Yes.
And now they're $90,000, which is a $21,000 decrease. So in total, this subcategory of the general fund shows a decrease of $29,800 from last year. So then I'd like to call out road infrastructure always. Again, there needs to be a place for road infrastructure. It's another place where people love to tap into it when there's, you're looking to cut your budget. Let's cut road infrastructure. It's seemingly harmless. But I always try and keep at least, I've actually tried to increase it, but it's hard to do. So I don't decrease it. So we're now at $750,000. It was $750,000 last year as well. So, so if we take all those things into consideration, the general fund before capital reserve fund expenditures, and remember, capital reserve fund expenditures, I've taken them out of this analysis because capital reserve fund expenditures come in exactly the same amount in revenue. So I'm just trying to show you what the general fund, how the general fund, if this budget is passed, will affect the tax rate or the tax levy. So that number is $668,000. And it was a combination of that $612,000 that we showed you before, and then add the 85, subtract out 29, and that's what we come to.
Could I suggest? Did you have a question?
I just wanted to, so that includes the 612 from before? I just wanted
It
to make
does.
sure I heard that correctly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before you go on to the next, could I recommend just a 5-minute?
Sure. Am I
Right.
talking too long?
Huh?
Am I talking too long?
No.
Be nice.
I just have to get my cover.
Okay, so a 5-minute town council break? Okay, I just wanted to wait to get. Okay, let's reconvene. Okay, we can continue now,
Okay,
Eileen.
back to the slide before. Okay, so here's your $668,000. We carry it forward to the next page. See it? Right there. Then we add in the capital reserve fund expenditures. And the reason why we add them in here, as I said before, is because we bring in the exact amount of revenue. So it really, it doesn't affect the bottom line of what we tax people for, because this is money that we've saved. So you can see that we, if you go back to the page before, as an example, capital reserve fund deposits, you can see we're depositing 1.697 million, and we're expending 1.9 million. So anyway, so there's a revenue and expense that go with the capital reserve fund expenditures. So the amount that, once again, the amount that affects the tax levy is the $668,000 in combined increases and decreases in the general fund expenditures. Then the state grants, again, we get them in and we spend them. The state and federal grants relate to the bridge projects and also to the TAP grant revenue. So the general fund totals, again, it looks like it's a decrease, but the real number is that affects the tax rate is the $668,000 or 2.72% increase in expenditures. So here's a list of the capital reserve fund expenditures, 2533808, and it's broken down by the general fund and by the sewer fund. So if you looked at the other page, you can see in the kind of 2/3 of the way down, all the way over to the right, you see that number of 1983808. That's the general fund, which was what we were focusing on. There's another $550,000 for the wastewater fund, which is the self-supporting fund. So during the budget process, we'll go through all those individual things. So again, we brought that total forward, the decrease of $19,000. And then we add back in all the self-supporting funds. The primary self-supporting fund, obviously, is the wastewater fund, including the wastewater, the two lines, wastewater and wastewater debt, which are paid by the sewer users and the sewer user fees. So there's increases and decreases there in all these different funds. One of them is the day camp, which has been eliminated because it's now a different kind of fund. It's now a revolving fund. So it doesn't go on the warrant article anymore. It gets approved separately. So if you wanted to compare what the day camp was last year to what is being proposed in the revolving fund this year, it was, as you can see, $221,429, and the proposed expenditure for that revolving fund this year is $262,604. So the grand total, all funds, back one. Grand total, all funds, an increase of $297,309, not really relevant as it relates to the tax rate. The real relevant number is the 688. Yeah. Okay. So not only do you have 668.
That's how I was going. What did I miss?
So not only do you have expenditures, but you also have revenue. So it's important for people to know that there are expenditures that are proposed, but we also receive money from other sources so that we don't have to go to the taxpayers for all of it. The largest non-property tax revenue is motor vehicle permits, and that is budgeted around about half of all the non-tax revenue is, or $4.3 or $4.4 million we receive in from motor vehicle permits. So what you can see is the general fund non-tax revenue. Again, this affects the tax rate. It shows an increase of $111,031, and it shows you in a general sense, with round numbers, why the increase in general fund revenues. We're projecting an increase in building permits of $35,000, an increase in ambulance fee revenue of $25,000. Cable franchise fees over the for the past 3 or 4 years, we have been using some of the cable franchise fee revenue. Instead of putting it all into the media fund, we've been using some of it to reduce the general fund tax rate. This year, we added another $50,000 because we're getting so much money from the cable franchise fee, and we're not spending it. So we've increased that from $150,000 to $200,000, which is the difference between those is $50,000. Yes.
When does that franchise agreement expire?
I don't know the answer.
In the next year or two, it's coming up.
Hope it's 3 years from now. Anyway, so motor vehicle permits, again, still on the rise, but we still need to be cautious because they're going up, but they go up and down and up and down, you know, kind of on a upward curve, but you know, we're getting very close to where, you know,
Capacity.
where we're comfortable with putting it at. So
Where's your projection for motor vehicles right as of now, for going into next year?
What our projection for motor vehicles, if you can, do you have your budget book?
No, I didn't give it to him.
He didn't want to
Okay.
overwhelm us.
Well, why don't you give me a budget book and I'll tell them.
Our projection is $4.4 million right now.
Where's my budget book?
It's over there.
Okay.
It's $4.4 million.
And it
that's
was
what we're projecting.
4.3.
Right.
Okay.
So we're looking at $4.4 million. We believe this year will be up, but there are certain things that have occurred in the last week that we feel comfortable with the number, but to increase it anymore, I would not feel comfortable.
Okay.
Because of the interest rate hikes in January 2015, January 21st, around that time.
Okay.
There's a lot of uncertainties still out there.
And you know, these things can be modified as we did last year as time progresses and we see more, we get more of the actuals. But they can change from month to month. You can have a huge amount in one month and you can have a very small amount in the next. Okay.
Is there any correlation there to the cash incentives or the other incentives that the car companies are offering, or is that just?
We don't really know.
There's a lot of leasing.
There's a lot of leasing. The leasing's coming due. There was some incentives. There's some zeros. There's some small interest rates. The big thing that's driving the motor vehicle permits that we have seen is the used vehicles. The used vehicles for a Toyota Corolla, for instance, was $5,000 5 years ago, and now a used Toyota Corolla is coming in 5 years old at $10,000 to $12,000. So there's increase in used vehicles.
Okay, all right.
We've asked our auditors, because they do
That's
this
because they don't have
throughout.
brakes.
Yeah. We asked our auditors throughout the state, and they've seen ups and downs, and they basically came back and said a lot of used vehicles, the price for used vehicles are substantially higher than what they were 5 years ago.
Yeah, they're offering to take my 2015 and give me, I'm not sure it's comparable, but a 2017.
For nothing?
Because
No.
there's a bigger market for used vehicles than new
There is
vehicles.
a bigger market. No.
I was going to say that. I'd take
Right,
that.
no,
if
like
it
I
was-
I'd
said
take that
before,
deal.
Go back to my earlier comment, there's no free lunch.
There's no free lunch. Okay. So motor vehicles, we have increased our estimate by $100,000 to $4.4 million. $4.4 million, yes. Interest income, we've increased that a sad little $10,000. It's slowly creeping up, very, 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 very slowly. Current use change tax, that's the money that comes from people taking their property out of current use. As we know, the current use property that is taxable is, most of it is already has come out, and it's depleting and depleting. So as it comes out, and the fund that the conservation fund has goes below $1 million, then we have to share 50-50. So they're well below $1 million. Yeah. So we've decreased that projection by $50,000. Recycling materials, that is things that we sell. So aside from the things that we take that they take from us for recycling, we sell steel on the side, and we sell various things like that. And those things collectively, we've reduced by $10,750. Sale of equipment, we've reduced that by $15,000. And that is because
we're not bringing a lot of things to auction. We're getting a better trade-in value than an auction value, so we're trading them in to get reduced pricing. So, but the sale of equipment is down.
Okay. Again, as I said to you, on the expenditure side, Merrimack Rocks Business Expo is there. It's showing as a decrease. It's showing as a decrease in expenses and a decrease in revenue. And then the $12,000 is to balance to the $111,031 increase. So that's to the good. Then the other thing that we are faced with is that this past year we used $225,000 to pay for the 53rd week of payroll, and then we used another $300,000, or I should say, you used another $300,000 for property tax relief. I have continued that $300,000 forward, as you had indicated you wanted to do, but we don't have the $225,000, so that's a factor as well. We included it as a decrease in the expenditures, and we also include it as a decrease in revenue. Back to the page, back to the other page. Okay, so the revenue for all funds is a total of the non-tax revenue. Self-supporting funds, exact same amount goes in and out. State and federal grants, the exact same revenue goes in and out. Capital Reserve Fund withdrawals, the same amount comes in and out. So the three things that involve the property tax levy on this page are the general fund non-tax revenue, the fund balance, and the motor vehicle registration infrastructure account. So here we are. The general fund, so we've broken them down. The general fund operating costs is an increase of approximately 19 cents. And what is that number again?
$660,000.
No, not for operating.
That's 612.
$612,000 that we looked at before. The Capital Reserve Fund deposits are an increase of $85,000, which represents approximately 3 cents. Other capital, which we looked at, was an increase of, a decrease of $29,000. That's a decrease of 1 cent. And what we've done here is we basically put in only those things in that last column that affect the tax levy. So you have an increase of 19 cents plus 3 cents minus 1 cent. Then revenues affect it because our revenues went up $111,000. That affects us in a good way to reduce the tax levy by 3 cents. And the fact that we are not using that, we're using $300,000 instead of $525,000 for the reduction in the use of fund balance represents 7 cents on the tax rate. So add all those factors together, the ins and outs, and it comes to a tax rate of 25 cents. Also, one of the things I wanted to point out to you is that we have reduced the value of the town as we had to, because if you look at the number of the town value in 16-17, it was $3.3 million, and as you know, that's $34 million too high. So what we did was Lauren has already picked up 20 some odd thousand. So what we did was we removed the 34 million and added back 20. So there is a reduction in the amount to be raised in the town value, but not a lot. 13 million in value.
So if I can understand, the 24 cents we talked about at the very beginning of this meeting that we did not include in this year's tax bill is part of this 25-cent increase in this upcoming year's tax bill?
No, it isn't, because it isn't because we've increased our value, our town value by 20,000. So 20 million. So what's affecting the tax rate from 1 year to the next is approximately $10 million, which is the difference between 14 million. So the difference between 34 million, which was incorrect, and the 20 million that we added. So it's 14 million.
But it's a piece of that. A part of that error shows up in this increase.
Yeah, it does. That shows up.
And when you talk about that 24 cents, that 24 cents is on the town tax rate, total town tax rate. So that's not just related to the town municipal portion. That was the school, the county, the state school, and everything. That was all the components of the tax rate added up to 24 cents. The total tax rate.
Total tax
So
rate.
the
Well,
town-
Here we're talking municipal only.
Yeah, we're talking
is
municipal
increase of
only.
25 cents.
Right.
But the town will be making up the whole $775,000 that represents everybody's
Portion.
portion. This current year that we're in, but next year it won't. It'll only affect us as the town's part. So we're at this point with the 4 firefighters for half a year and all the other things that I show in there. It shows an increase of 25 cents. Go. So here's things that we're always thinking about. What's going to happen with the state budget? There's only 2 things that they give us anymore. So there are only 2 sums of money that the state gives us anymore on a regular basis, and that's rooms and meals, taxes, and highway block grant, and that can always change, if it will or go up or down, or we don't know. And then we have the one union contract left.
Outstanding, yeah.
So here's your, we like to do this every year. We like to show where how your tax bill is broken up. And the aqua color down at the bottom, that's the school portion, and what has happened with the school budget since the year 2000 to 2016. But you can see it's by far the lion's share of your tax bill is the school. And then the kind of gold color is the town. And then the like royal blue color is the county. So here is, again, breaks it down in a different way. The average home in Merrimack is approximately $260,000 this year. And so home valued at $260,000 would have a total tax bill of approximately $5,926. Of that $5,926, $4,337 of it goes to the school, $312 of it goes to the county, and $1,277 goes to the municipality. And that, it's always kind of shocking to me to look at this and think of everything that the municipality includes. Your police, your fire, your public works, your snow removal, your trash disposal, your street lights, your snow plowing, your road improvements, your library, your parks and recreation, all of those things together make up 21% of the total bill. So I just think it's important to point that
Could you
out.
do me a favor, Paul? Could you tell me, now this was 2016, if we increased by 25 cents, what would that 260 home valued, what would the tax rate be?
We can't know that because we don't know what the schools is. Oh, how much would it increase the tax bill? Okay, I'm sorry.
That, again, but it would just be a portion. It wouldn't include an increase that the school would be.
No increase at the school and county, only the municipal portion of the tax rate
Municipal only.
would cost you an extra $65
On
a year on a
Correct.
$260,000 home.
So the tax bill would be different because it doesn't include the school.
School. The municipal.
Or the county.
Right. The municipal portion of your tax bill would increase $65 on a
A year.
$260,000 home for the year,
Based on this proposed
based on
budget.
this
Correct.
proposed budget.
Okay.
Still doesn't include the union contract.
What's left
Potential
over,
human contract.
potential human
Yes, and we didn't put it up on the slide. We will be bringing forward the highway garage bond
Right,
also.
but that's a bond.
I believe that's where we're heading.
Right.
Kyle's meeting with the yeah.
Right, that's to be about soon.
But you're gonna get a presentation on that in January for sure.
Correct.
One way or the other. But you'll get a presentation on it, so.
Okay. I just wanted to finalize, based upon the projected increase as is, what that impact would have on the total value, so it's $65. Thank you. Jackie, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Can you tell yet what a penny pays for the tax rate? Like 30,000 or 20,000 or 10,000?
One
cent on a
cent
tax rate.
is, we're still right around $3.3 billion worth of value, so $30,000 is a penny.
Penny.
$33,000 is a penny.
Yeah, so it's about the same, yeah, okay.
So obviously, I'm going to let you ask any questions that you want. Clearly, we're going to go into great detail with each department. But I just, once again, It is a very difficult thing to go through a budget and work through it. As you know, Paul and his staff prepare all the salary and benefits data as well as a lot of other things. Very complicated, always accurate. So you're not going to see health insurance at this rate in that in that department, and this one in that. So they're checked and double checked. And what I also like to say is that the department heads are always super cooperative and understand that, you know, one year we might be proposing new firefighters, and next year it might be a different department. So people understand and have, we've worked with each one of them. Paul has met with them, I've met with them to talk about the various things. And for all intents and purposes, I believe that they're supportive of what we've brought forward, even though it's quite a bit different than what they've proposed. And I would say to you that when you get your budgets, you'll see what they've proposed. And when they make their budget presentation to you, I've said to them, please make your presentation from what you've asked for, even though it's different than mine. So thank you to everybody for all the hard work, especially Paul.
As usual, a really clear and thorough presentation. Thank you.
One thing we kind of touched base on our last meeting, if you guys if the councilors have specific questions, please get them to Eileen so we can get them to the department, so when they come up here to present their budgets, they can answer your questions where they're not trying to fumble through, 16 pages of information, then all the detail that they have to go through also to come up with some of the numbers. So if you do have those kind of questions, if you can get them to Eileen beforehand, it would be greatly appreciated.
I was just going to reiterate that. You beat me to it. Sorry. Oh, fine. No problem. Yes, Bill.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Can you help me understand philosophically the 6 months only for the 4 firefighters?
Money. Money. I was not going to propose a 35-cent tax rate increase. And we had as Dan had pointed out, we were $100,000 behind the 8 ball to begin with. So it's, I'm trying to ease them in.
So, I mean, in reality, it's really 2 full-time firefighters.
No, it's 4 full-time.
You're doing a half year, so, 1 half of 4 is 2. So it's either, it's 2 full-time firefighters or 4 for 6 months of the year. I'm trying to wrap my arms around, how do you hire 4 new firefighters to only be on the payroll for 6 months? This is what
you hire them in January.
January 1st, they'll be on. This way it gives us recruiting time. It also gives us time to look for grants. We've talked to Assistant Chief Borneman to start looking at potential grants that he'll be talking about when the fire department comes in to discuss these positions. A lot of those grants don't close, though, until after we go on warrant. So we have to do it. It was a timing issue. We also talked that even if the budget gets passed as of July 1st, we will not be able to get the gentleman hired for July 1st and started on July 1st. And we thought it would be best, talking to the fire chief and everything else, that we could recruit during the summer months, do the testing, do the oral boards, and they'll be ready to go as of January 1st, and they'll actually be in the door on January 1st, 1 each shift. And that's how we came up. Well, part of it was money, but the other part was timing. And we knew that even if we did put them in for a full year, they wouldn't be here for a full year because of recruitment and trying to find the right fit, the paramedics.
So realistically, you're banking for 6-month firefighters in anticipation of I got my dates mixed up. This would be the 2018, 2019 budget?
2018, 2019, obviously we'll be showing them for a whole year.
For a whole year?
So, yeah, it's,
Okay.
so for purposes of full disclosure, I think that's an important point to make.
And my only question will be is I would like to see where the overtime budget is as it relates to the fire department, which I'm,
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll see all
in light
that.
of the conversations that we had last budget cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as a round number, we show a decrease of $42,000
I saw
by
that.
hiring that. So, but we'll give you, obviously, during the presentation, we'll give you the analysis.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Questions? None. Thank you. Thorough as usual. And understandable, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
It could be. Always is.
Eileen, I think you're finally used to dealing with the town form of government now. Really? No, that was
This
that
was,
was your best presentation.
this was
to
the
be
first
honest.
budget hearing that you didn't mention the city of Laconia once, so that was,
Yeah, well,
No, the other place I used to be.
Oh, look, at everybody's leaving. Let us know how cold it is out there, okay?
oh yeah, I'm sure
Thank
they're
you.
gonna come back in.
Just, you can text us. Would you warm up my car while you're? It'll take that long to warm it up. That's one thing I missed. This car doesn't have a automatic start.
I'll be giving you your books and your flash drive.
On the way out. Okay.
You don't want us to be looking at them.
Last but not least, elected or appointed town treasurer submitted by town councilor Tom Mahon to ascertain the desire of the town council to propose amending the town charter to appoint rather than elect a town treasurer. Councilor Mahon, you have the floor.
Yes, I recall that we discussed this at one point several years ago and decided against it. What triggered the request was a legislative service request that went in about allowing certain towns to appoint their town clerk rather than have the town clerk elected. And I recall that the current town treasurer's term expires in April of 2018. So the timing would be, at this point, would be useful. But the other thing that I think, one of the things that we talked about was the difficulty, the complexity, sometimes complexity of the position, and the requirements of the position, and the skill level that you would like to have in that position, so that you can maximize the skills of the person that are in there to carry out the functions that are called for in the statute for the treasurer. Right now, most of the work is getting done in the finance office anyway, and this just seemed like the opportune time to think about it and to discuss what we were going to do. The incumbent would be able to retain the office until the term expired, and then it would become an appointed position where the council would make the appointment. So I'm it's not a heavy investment on my part emotionally about the whole thing. It's just, is this a practical thing that we want to do? Do we think this is practical enough for us? And I think it is, but, among other things, it's getting more and more difficult. We're looking at between $104 and $110 million business here this year, coming up through the next budget cycle. That's a lot of money to handle, okay? A lot of money to be responsible for and to try to deal with. And, the position is there. I don't know whether, maybe we ought to be proposing that statute be repealed, but it's an internal financial control for the most part. And so it's, I think it's something that bears, retaining for that factor, but I think it's something that we need to think about in terms, as I said, in terms of skill level that you might attract for that type of a position, and how you would define it and whatever. So, that's, and to get it done, we got to get it started now, to get it through the cycle that we need in order to change the charter. Right.
Oh, yes. I was curious, I was reading the duties of the town treasurer, and it said that that person is responsible for investing money into a particular format, though. And I was wondering, how much does that person really have to think it through? And does Paul really do it? And he's supposed to keep track of the money and report every year, and I was wondering if, in fact, that person does.
No, the auditor does it for us.
And would that continue, do you think?
I don't know.
In the
Paul?
case of a hired person?
Actually, I report it in the town report. I do the report for the treasurer. I do most of the investing for the town through the regulations. Not alone. I call them in and say, this is what I'm thinking of doing, what do you want to do? And usually it's, yeah, let's go ahead and open up that bank account or put that money in that CD.
And I'm sure you know this, Jackie, that there's not a lot of options for general fund money to be spent, or anything but trust funds. Trust funds can be in anything, but general fund or municipal funds can only be in treasury bonds, CDs, and that kind of thing. And we have to always be prepared for very large bills, because once a month we pay over between $3.8 and $4.2 million a month to the school, and then that's a net check, and then we also, on December 17th every year, we have to pay the county, which is $4 million. So we have to have we have to have liquidity, and a lot of thought has to be put in there, but there isn't a lot of investing savvy that a person needs to have in order to do it. Yeah.
Is this a paid position currently?
Yes, it is. It's a stipend position,
A stipend position?
monthly payment.
And if we appointed someone, would that still, do you picture that as being on the same level?
That's an issue that we'd have to decide on.
What's the stipend? About?
Yeah, something like that. It's $100 and something a month.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Treasurer's $1,300 a year, 1300 a year. There's also other duties that, if you do go down this road with an appointed position, that the finance department is doing now for the treasurer. We have paperwork in place giving us permission to do some stuff like deposits and other things, that if we do this, that those duties, I could foresee going to somebody to do that besides myself or somebody else in my department on days.
So it would be a help for you to have a
It-
person?
An appointed position will give us, it depends who you appoint, but an appointed position, would give you that extra step. I don't want to use this analogy, but this analogy was put on me just this week by a treasurer. It's not simply balancing a checkbook. There's other things that you need to do along with it. And when people look at the duties, they kind of take a step back and say, no, I don't want to do that. Because, like Tom said, you're dealing with a $100 million operation. You got to reconcile every check. You got to see what every invoice is and review the invoice to payments and things of that sort. And those are the duties of a treasurer in the town. Every invoice should be reconciled. Every check needs to be reconciled to the manifest and other things. Every deposit needs to be reconciled to make sure that where the money is and things of that sort. So for $100 million, that's a lot of paperwork. That's a lot of time, in there. We have file cabinets filled with stuff just for 1 year.
Now, why would that be different elected versus appointed?
It's not.
Oh,
It's just, if you go with an elected, somebody puts their name in, and they get majority plus one, it's $1,300, and then they come back and say, oh, I'm not doing that. No, I don't want to do that, and we got to get it done, so we end up picking it up.
yes, Dan?
I would, with no disrespect to the current treasurer, past treasurer, it's almost a ceremonial position, just my opinion.
Okay.
Our finance director and assistant is really doing the real nuts and bolts and guts of the
Exactly.
entire operation. So again, I want to stress, no disrespect to the current treasurer and past treasurers, but I think what Tom's alluding to, it's almost of a bygone era, in our modern system of government may not really require this kind of position anymore. So I'm kind of in favor of a charter change, at least to put it to the people to see what their opinions are. But more directly to your question, if it's elected and they're appointed, it's any average Joe can put their name on the ballot. If we're going to appoint somebody, then obviously we're looking at resumes, and we're looking at qualifications. And if anything, we would put Paul's department under the leadership of that treasurer to help with the workload or whatever his department sees that role in helping the overall finance department, is how I view it.
So
Okay, so if I'm
that's
viewing it wrong, I'd love to, let somebody
So you'd end up
chime in
paying
on
if
what I'm saying, but that's where I'm coming from on this topic.
That's what I'm trying to, go ahead, Finley, go ahead, and then Jackie, and then Tom.
Well, no, you had a question for me? Or-
Well, I was just trying to understand that if you're talking about an appointment, you're talking about looking at resumes and really taking it seriously and taking some of the responsibility away from. Is
That
how
part I
you
don't
understand
know.
it? Then you're talking about, you're not talking $100 a month, you're talking
No,
about a
you're not.
salary of some type.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was gonna say rather,
Okay.
is that if you're gonna have somebody who's gonna go through every receipt, every invoice, every check written, that's a position that you're gonna pay.
Significant.
With benefits and everything else. I haven't heard anybody ask for that yet, and I'm not willing to go there, quite
Right,
frankly.
right.
So, for
And
me,
neither was I. I'm just looking what the logical
advantage?
conclusion is if you eliminate the current role of the
Right.
treasurer and have this newer appointed position. Now, appointment seems to be with the duties to be a real job, not a stipend job, for the reasons
Correct.
Paul just
Right.
gave.
so for me, I have no heartburn one way or the other. I get the concept that Tom talks about. You can get somebody in there who's very qualified with training, not,
Yeah.
to do these things. But again, I think if you're gonna go there, it's a position now, and it's a real paycheck. It's not a stipend with guidance from our finance and making suggestions to the treasurer, whomever that might be.
Well, that's why I even said, maybe it's a modern equivalent to eliminating the treasurer position altogether. And I'm just saying that out loud.
Can you even do
Maybe
that?
this is, and I don't know if you can. And so therefore, if you can't, by RSAs, then it is just a ceremonial position. And-
I mean, I just don't know what's appropriate.
Not if you read the statute, it's not a ceremonial position.
No, but we know what the current treasurer's duties are and the time involved that it takes, and it's an elected position that pays $1,300 a year. So I would say out loud, what are you really doing? How many hours a week, how many hours a month to this job, this position, are you really doing? And what value do you bring to our town operating system with this current treasurer?
Are most towns appointed or elected? Do we have any sense?
I actually looked at that, and most towns are appointed. Some of the smaller communities are still elected, but most of the towns are appointed. And then the ones that aren't appointed, they're kind of like ours, an absentee treasurer, where the finance person has assumed the roles.
On those towns that it's appointed,
It's additional duties to somebody, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a deputy finance director. It's somebody else besides myself. That is the appointment, it's an additional duties
and you're
to that
talking about
person.
a specified amount that would be in the budget, which would be equitable to a position, probably.
He just
Not-
said the
not a-
the assistant director could also hold the title of treasurer.
There would be a stipend given, additional money given to them, but it wouldn't be like tens of thousands of
It
dollars.
doesn't
It'd
necessarily
just
have to be a $70,000 a year job.
It's
Eileen has something she's holding back.
In another community that was not Laconia that I worked in.
Wasn't Pelham, was it?
No, I never worked in Pelham.
That was elected in 1978.
I was the treasurer as well as the finance director. So,
Say it again?
in another community that I
Yeah.
worked in that was not Laconia, I was the finance director and the treasurer,
And the
which was
city
a
of,
city.
and the city of
So-
Concord has a separate treasurer.
They have a paid treasurer.
Right,
Yeah.
several of the cities have separate treasurer positions.
Of course, you're talking about Concord.
Right, which,
Hold on.
The cities
I
are a
know,
little
but still,
different because their treasurer also is their town, tax collector.
the
some
only real, I guess what I would
The
say,
advantage
the
is what?
only, the disadvantage to having an elected treasurer is if you have somebody who comes in who wants to start investing money and starts getting into investing money so that and we don't have the liquidity that we need when we need it, if they don't listen to Paul.
You're talking about appointed or elected?
I'm talking about, I'm actually well, appointed, you could choose a person that, that had if you get somebody that's elected, you can have somebody that thinks they know what they're doing but really doesn't, and can really cause Paul's department an awful lot of problems.
Okay.
So far, we have not had that. The person does what they have the ability to do and leaves the rest to Paul and his department.
This town had that problem in 1991. Because I got a call from the finance director banging on me as the chairman of the school board. Actually, it was earlier than that, so it would have been 88. We were going to ratify a teacher contract. And the timing of it was really thin in terms of when we had to do it as to when we could issue the tax bills. And they were very upset, and I found out afterwards that the reason it happened is because the town had invested long. And if it didn't get done by that particular point in time, the tax revenue wouldn't be coming in order to cover the expenses of the town and the school district. But that did happen here, but it happened, 20 years ago, 25 years ago? Well before your time.
And we did have an issue back in 7, 8 with when we switched over my finance software with a treasurer issue between.
So are you suggesting that you would concur with Tom to go with an appointed?
As it stands right now, we're fine. So, it personally wouldn't matter to me.
Having it appointed doesn't create a problem for you?
It does not now. It does not now with the current person.
No, but I'm saying if it were an appointed,
If you got an appointed person, you could have the same problems. You could have somebody that you.
But that's the,
But you can
That's true.
terminate the other
Correct.
according to the
Yeah.
information I've
if you haven't, and this was the thing that I was thinking about, is if you have a town treasurer that's elected,
Right.
and let's just say does something wrong, does something malfeasant,
With no
it
control.
would be my understanding, and I'll defer to Council Mayon over here for his expertise, but I imagine it would be the ethics committee, or referral would go to the ethics committee, and,
No,
no?
no, you go to court.
You go to court.
Where
Okay,
it's
so it goes, so even worse. It makes my argument better, that if you gotta go to court, that means you're gonna spend money to remove the guy, whereas if we appoint a town treasurer and something goes wrong, it comes before us and we decide whether that individual stays or goes, and it's immediate.
that's more meaningful to me. It's a very good point. That's important. Jackie?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering what there is no checks and balance purpose to this person. This is a person who has certain tasks to do, period, end of story.
Well, they're
So that-
supposed to, they're,
It's supposed to be.
it's supposed to be part of your internal financial controls because they're responsible for making the deposits and keeping track of the money and making sure that what you're reporting as receipts is what they actually receive as receipts and what goes in and is deposited. There's been some instances where there have been difficulties in some communities where the treasurer wasn't making their deposits in a timely fashion. Or they'd wait two or 3 weeks. They make one deposit every 2 or 3 weeks. So that, when you were able to earn a fairly decent rate of return on your money. And also, they weren't holding the tax collector and the town clerk accountable for the reconciliation of their accounts to the amount of money that they were giving them to deposit.
So there
And,
is a little bit of an
yeah,
element of that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
'Cause-
auditors would catch some of that too, right?
Well, in a couple of towns, they didn't.
But they're supposed to catch
They're
things
supposed to
like
catch it, yeah.
Yeah, because it would seem,
Also, the other thing is, problems like that happen a lot in communities who really don't, who have a bookkeeper rather than a finance director. They're real small towns. Most of the communities in the state are really tiny towns. So there can be a lot of problems because you don't have professional finance staff to do the work. So you have a treasurer that can come in and cause all kinds of issues whereby that we do have checks and balances because you've got Paul, you have his assistant who checks his work, you have the payroll person that does their work, you have the accounts payable person that does their work, you have the purchasing person that does their work. I have to sign everything over a certain dollar amount. I sign every manifest, payroll and everything, so I review them also. So there are a lot of checks and balances. I don't want people to think that there aren't
That
a
we
lot
need a
in
treasurer
place,
for that.
or that we don't, because the function of the treasurer has diminished, that those things aren't in place anymore, because they are very, very tight.
Our internal controls in finance are, tight, but our auditors come to us.
I was
and
going to say,
they
the
use
auditing
us as
results are always good.
Right, they use us as examples to other communities of, when they say we don't have enough people, they come back and say, well, Merrimack does it with this many people, and you have just as many people, and this is how they do it. So our internal controls are definitely solid.
Jackie?
remind me then why we can't just fold this position into the finance department
Because it's required by law.
to have a treasurer's
To have
position?
to have an elected or an appointed treasurer.
Yeah, okay. 'Cause-
Okay, so if it's elected, you got, as somebody's already alluded to, you don't have as much sway over, might not have as much sway over them.
You could have a write-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a write-in ballot for treasurer because the new gentleman says he's gonna run, or she's gonna run, and then doesn't run. And then the last day closes, nobody signs up for it. And then you have a write-in campaign like we had with one of the elected positions where, you get 100 votes, now you're the new treasurer of the town of Merrimack.
Hey, I got school district clerk with 22.
Yeah.
To follow up on Jackie's point, though, I thought I had understood that there are some town positions that you could also make treasurer.
Correct.
You could appoint the person, you can
Right.
appoint them.
So to answer
Yeah.
your question is yes.
Yes,
You're not going
I,
to give them the responsibility, but you're going to appoint them with the responsibility.
And they already do the responsibility.
Right,
That's the point
like
of
your
it, so-
assistant. That person could be appointed as the town treasurer.
Right, because he has the right skill set.
Like Eileen
So-
said,
Right.
like Eileen, in the other town, she had both.
Correct.
Both
So
positions.
the answer is
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's just that verbiage was
Yeah,
different.
because I was thinking this morning about how people might think, and the townspeople in Merrimack keep track of things pretty well, and they know the people they're voting for, and I think they panic on election day if they're not a little bit familiar with the various people running, and they have to, I don't want to vote for somebody I don't know. They will tend I think, to vote for somebody that they like and trust, like the current
General trust.
treasurer. And that he might not have the skill set for the whole thing, but then again, he's not being paid a whole lot either. And it would seem to me that I almost said the way around it, because I guess am kind of thinking about that, is to give it to somebody who is already under your wing.
You need the microphone?
I worked, when I was the treasurer and finance director, I worked in a city. So I'm pretty sure the town has to have a treasurer that is not a town employee.
Oh, okay. So they do
Okay.
want
You're
a
not
check and balance of some
If they're
sort.
elected.
Oh, if they're elected.
It doesn't define the appointee either. It doesn't define who can run for the office. It just defines what the duties of the position are.
Yeah.
Of course, the advantage of putting it on the ballot is the town can make the decision.
Wouldn't you have to in the final
Oh, yes.
We have
analysis?
to do a
Right.
charter change.
Yeah.
Right.
So the
Which
question is, do we
would,
keep
which
it
would
with
indicate
the-
whether
Right.
it's appointed
Yep.
or not. If they want to keep it as an elected position,
Yep.
they would defeat the charter change, right?
Right.
They would what?
Defeat the
Well-
charter change.
Yeah, and people they might want to just keep it.
I mean, if it gets defeated, clearly they're telling us they want to elect
Yeah,
it.
and I have an idea that they will
Right?
defeat it.
That's true. That's true.
And if
But
they
look at the
agree to the
look at
charter
the discussion
change,
we're having around here about this whole issue, and do you really think it's necessary to take it to a ballot?
well, a
given the
charter
ten-
change would have to go to the ballot.
Yes, I
wouldn't it?
know.
Oh,
I
then what am
know.
I missing?
So do we want to do that?
Do we want to
Right.
do that?
That's my point.
Okay, given the tenor of the conversation we're having here, is that something that we want to do?
Well,
Okay, because we're, trying to get a grip on what the responsibilities are and how that would work in and how it works now and how it might work if the position were finally appointed. So I don't know. That's why I brought the issue up.
Yeah, I've for a long time thought we should move to an elected one, or to an appointed one if possible, because I believe that we could have individuals with skill sets that are better adapted to the job, instead of having what potentially could be, and not saying it is currently, but potentially could be just a ceremonial position, because somebody's signed up to be elected and was elected, but didn't necessarily have any of the skill sets for a treasurer. So if we had the opportunity to appoint, we'd be able to appoint somebody that had at least the minimal skill set based on however much we decide we're going to pay them for that, either as a stipend to somebody who's already working in that department or to an outside individual. I mean, we could appoint anybody, but I would like to see us with that opportunity. Would the town vote for that? I mean, there's been talk of having the tax collector be an appointed position as well, and that's been shot down because the town says, oh, we want to keep our check and balances. Well, I mean, okay, but, and currently and in the past, we've had good people in tax collector position, but you could also get somebody appointed that doesn't know what they're doing and be in serious trouble. And somebody would have to take up the slack for that individual. Making no comment about our current tax collector, but just saying that some of these positions that are fairly critical for a large organization like Merrimack has become, I think would be better off if they were appointed. And so I would certainly support making that change to the charter, just to get my voice out there as to where I stand on the issue.
Anyone else? I feel comfortable personally going along with what you said. I mean, I really didn't have any knowledge or an appreciation of the difference between elected versus appointed. But certainly the appointed seems to offer more potential for us to monitor. If everything goes helter-skelter with elective, we have no authority whatsoever. That's my,
More complicated.
much more complicated. Versus if it's an appointed, we'd probably, the skill set would be different. We could probably integrate it into personnel we already have. To me, it's, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. That's my opinion. Bill?
We're the 8th largest community in this state, and I think we need to look at how we govern and administrate ourselves. And if this gives us more oversight on a position that, in my opinion, is important, then it behooves us to consider putting it to the voters and saying to them, we think this is important to make it an appointed position.
And if they'll disagree with us, they'll let us know.
Correct.
One final thing, Nancy.
Yes, Dan?
Again, I can't say it enough for everybody in town, and I'm sure I speak for all of us. Our current treasurer is a fine individual, and this is a
Absolutely.
philosophical
It has-
discussion
Oh, absolutely.
regarding the
Oh,
running of our
absolutely.
town. It has no bearing on the current treasurer or even past treasurers. It's been something that has been going on here for over 100 years, and we're just having a philosophical discussion, 200 years, about the way we run our town. So I want to just make sure that that's can't be said enough. That, thank you.
I'm glad you stressed that, because that's accurate. What's the
Yeah,
pleasure?
I did not mean any disrespect or call
Absolutely.
into
That's
question
not the motivation.
the commitment of the incumbent at all, and that's why I was trying to time it, because he may decide he doesn't want to run
Anyway.
for that position again, and
Madam Chair, I would move that we would instruct the town manager to interact with our town council in formulating what a warrant article would look like of making the town treasurer an appointed position.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Dan Dwyer. Any further discussion?
And I do want to thank Tom for bringing this up. I think this was a really good discussion. So, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 700. That was a good discussion. Okay, approving the minutes of November 17th.
Madam Chair, I move the November 17 minutes with the following changes.
Go for it.
Strictly administrative. On page 6, line 1, Council Dwyer and I were having a conversation about the FET, how it should be 4 lanes, and Dan was kind enough to tell me that it will always be 3 lanes, and they have me speaking on Dan's behalf, so it should read Councilor Dwyer, not Councilor Boyd. And on page 13, line 41, it should be Councilor Boyd, not Director Boyd. I do want to thank the stenographer for the promotion. It's
I was
deeply
going to say, is that
appreciated.
direct, is that a promotion or not?
there is no promotion because there is no director position.
Oh, that's, there you go. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Any other corrections? I needed, do you have corrections?
Yes, thank you. On page 6, line 32, it says, Councilor Koenig stated that he heard stated was there is no intention. I think what I meant to say was that Councilor Koenig stated that he heard them say,
Heard them say.
them say, the people that were giving us the presentation, so say there was no intention as part of this project to move the toll booth.
Yeah,
So just to try and clear up
yeah, structure.
the structure there.
Hold, do you have a question about
That's
that?
all I had on that one.
No.
Okay, Jackie?
Yeah, on page 9, on the second minutes, line 32 and 33, when I got to that point, when,
We're not on those yet.
Yeah, we're not on that yet.
oh, I'm sorry, we're still on the other ones, I'm
Right.
sorry.
That's all right.
It's after 10. It
Okay, I
happens
need a
all
second.
Second.
So-
Tom Koenig.
Pick somebody.
All those in favor of corrections, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 700. Next one, Bill was absent from the December 1st. so we'll talk about it now.
Okay.
Motion, just letting you know, Bill, you're supposed to abstain from this. All those, I take a motion. Jackie fled.
No, I
Now,
wanted to.
corrections now.
Yeah,
Go for it.
well, it's not really a correction, it's I think it would
Clarification or
make
whatever.
things, read, because when I got to this line of
Which
30
line
What
was it
page
again?
we talking about?
33, page 9,
Page 9.
line 32 and 33.
Getcha.
You, each item in the major projects that was being spoken of and is a separate paragraph, which is great. But then I get to this, stated the total dollars proposed to come from the general fund to be 8 million, blah, blah. Instead of, I thought that if it said the general fund for major projects, it would, be more understandable. Just spell it out a little bit more.
I don't understand your suggestion, Jackie. What are you
Okay.
suggesting?
Okay.
What verbiage would you prefer?
To add, to come from the general fund for major projects, to add for major projects. Because I had to read it to, probably just me, but I had to read it 2 or 3 times to make sense of it, that's all.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is it read, Town Manager Carpinal stated the total dollars proposed to come from the general fund
For major projects.
to add for major projects to be 8,700,000. Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
is that okay?
Okay. Any other changes?
Yes.
Tom?
Hi, thanks. Back on page 5 of 13, on line 26, it states general public to become more education on what is occurring.
yeah.
I think it should be educated on what is occurring.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
That's it?
So I had time to find it.
Okay, we have a motion for acceptance by Jackie Flood. Can I have a second?
Second.
By Tom Mahan. And, acceptance with all the changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, abstain, 1. 6-0-1, Bill Boyd abstaining. Okay, comments from the press. Comments from the public. Come for it. Did you wait this whole time? My God. God bless you.
Yeah, really.
I thought it was right after, and then once I realized I'm already.
Just have your name and address, please.
Yes, Natalia Bayramova, 26 Crosswoods Path. I just want to thank the town council for looking into the solar issue. I appreciate that you guys didn't rush into the decisions and you want to, get all the information before making any major decisions. Like it or not, I think the green energy is only going to increase, so it makes sense to look into it now, really get all the info and then just make small adjustments later. The main issue that I want to highlight is the distinction between the leased panels and owned panels. I believe that the panels do increase the value of the house, so it does make that they're part of the assessments. And, just like you guys were talking about the pool or the kitchen. Some people see it as a downside, but if you count the 30% federal credit, you might say, okay, that's a wash at least. Leased panels, though, you don't get any credits at all. You don't own them. You can take them with you when you move, so then they're no longer part of the house. And
You can.
right,
You
And-
usually have to pay for it, though.
yeah,
I'm sure
it's just
you have to.
$500.
You're
It's,
not gonna just go
it's
up there
not
and
a.
pack 'em up with your trolleys.
Well, it might be part of the lease. Who knows? I'm sorry. go ahead.
That's okay.
I interrupted you.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll go back to it. I was gonna say. So you kind of compare it really with like a satellite dish as opposed to a pool or a kitchen that you can't really rip the cabinets and take it with you. Oh man,
I did
had
that to
That's
you. I'm
okay. I
so
know I had
sorry.
it all in my head now. I'll get back to. I did lose something, but I'll get back to it. So I know it was mentioned that some people might have not realized the tax implications. I don't know about other people, but in my agreement, it actually specifically says that the property taxes are included in the rate that you're paying. So, and even says if your rate increases, then, I mean, if your property tax rate increases, then your rate increases and you're supposed to pay that. So that actually is specifically said in the agreement. So, also the, like some people might say, well, while you have it, you know, it is part of the house right now as you live in it, so you should pay the taxes, which kind of makes sense too, but then you should get the credits too. Like you can't kind of pick and choose, and it's you either have all the benefits or none of the benefits. You know, you kind of have to sort of, because guys, I can't remember who said it, but about the fairness, that some might say, well, how come I'm paying taxes on my pool, but this person is not paying on their solar panels? That makes sense, but then also, then how come this person who owns the panels and has all the credits and paying the taxes, and I'm paying the taxes, but I don't get the credits? So it's kind of like, you know, you have to sort of look into all of the aspects. So just to summarize, I don't know, whatever I lost is gone.
I interrupted you at the
That's
point
all
where
right.
you were talking about
I think I
moving.
covered
Does it
most,
bring
whatever it
back?
was.
Okay.
But just to summarize, I just, when you guys looking into it, because I know you will, because that's what you said, just maybe kind of, I just encourage you to see what other places, because I can't remember her name, the assessor did say that she had the data from other towns, just to see what they had it as a distinguished, you know,
Just to let-
characteristics between owned and leased panels.
Just to
Thank
let you know, there's a packet on the table over there, and you probably will have that listing that she was talking about. It's probably in there. If you look at the
It is.
section.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. But the listing that we talked about
Ju-
is
that's all in
online
there.
also, but it's in there as
Oh,
well.
okay, okay. But that was, that,
Just for your own.
You don't have to take,
oh, okay.
you don't have to take the tree with you.
I mean, tomorrow if I can't fall.
She wants to start a fire.
Yeah. Or you're an insomniac.
But it is very good information, you're absolutely
And
right.
just so you know, I do have the leased ones, that's why it's my concern.
You know.
But, and like, you know, we're saying, some people maybe choose it for money, but most like, I choose because I want to be green, but I also kind of I want it to be fair. And I understand when the assessors come around, they don't know, they look, oh, you have solars, they don't know if it's leased or not, obviously. But I'm guessing most of them are probably leased,
Probably.
because that's why, you know, it's much cheaper, because you don't own them, so you don't pay for the installation, but if something breaks, same thing, like they come and fix, like I said, it's very, if like, I know it's a smaller scale, but like satellite dish, if your dish breaks, DirecTV comes and fixes it, you have nothing to do with it, you know? So, and then if you move, they take the dish, and then
Right.
put it on your new house with the, you know, new model maybe, if you like.
Right,
So, thank you very much.
very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Who do you lease through?
Solar City.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thank you.
Never mind. Nothing.
Comments from the council? Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tuesday prior was the planning board, and the planning board was introduced to Phase 2 of Merrimack Premium Outlets, of what Tom Monahan and his colleagues are preparing to do, and very exciting.
That's not phase two.
It's not phase two.
I'm calling it Phase 2 because it's
Whatever,
the second
okay.
pad.
I won't,
I understand there's other
because
phases.
there is another phase
I-
two in
I-
the future.
I appreciate what you're saying, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's why I was confused. I thought you might have been talking about I didn't know about, that's why.
Oh,
I was
okay.
going like, really?
Oh, that's right.
I didn't know about that.
Anyway, the Chairman Harrington was there and testified, but it was, at least from my perspective, it was a very interesting proposal, and Councilor Koenig is going to have his hands full moving forward on that project. But I think the more exciting one was the redevelopment of the Old Shaw site. I can't begin to tell you how thrilled I am with what the owners of the property are proposing to do. They're not going to change the footprint, but they're certainly going to, they're not going to put like a fresh coat of paint on it. They're really going to clean it up, and they're going to put some, based on what they're proposing, going to give it a new look, a new feel to the site. So I'm very excited about what they're proposing, and it was reported in the Union Leader that they're looking at it's going to be a grocer. They're looking at several grocers going into, hopefully being the anchor tenant for that location. So knock on wood, we'll see what happens with that. Next Wednesday is the meeting with the NRPC. I'm anticipating, I have not seen what the agenda looks like. I'm anticipating that they're going to ask for a vote on the strategic plan, and we had Tim here to kind of talk it over, so I wanted to kind of get a sense as to what my council colleagues were regarding whether I should be endorsing the strategic plan of the NRPC or not. I don't want to vote my conscience without having some kind of consensus from my colleagues.
Feedback for Bill? I was fine with it.
I didn't have any problem with this discussion.
No, I didn't either.
Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And a belated Happy Hanukkah to the Jewish members of the Merrimack community, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to the entire Merrimack community. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Anybody else? Finley?
Oh,
I'm
well,
sorry,
yeah,
Jackie.
Well,
I
I
didn't see.
wanted
You were
to.
you were sitting back here.
Phil has
Sorry.
already presented the good wishes, and I would like everyone to enjoy their particular traditional holiday, and get whatever sustenance that they need out of these wonderful and holy days.
Nice.
Merry
Finley?
Christmas.
And I concur. I did want to take just a quick second to say that I will be missing Pete Albert. He didn't make mention earlier, but I'm sorry to see him go, and I wish him well in his future endeavors. Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone down here? No. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Yes.
You didn't raise your hand high enough.
I got one of those letters.
You did.
Yeah.
Blood testing?
Blood
Yeah.
testing.
Oh.
Cool.
So I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. It's been 4 months. I've been poked and prodded and punched.
What the heck
and-
is a blood test?
Yeah, I know.
One more is.
Anyway.
Yeah, one more poke is no big. And
So
Finley,
anyhow,
you did too.
but the other thing is, on a personal note, my wife and I are making a quick trip to New York City on Sunday to meet with our first exchange student that we hosted
Very cool.
28 years ago.
Wow.
Lovely.
Her family's coming over for the holidays to stay with her brother, who is working in D.C., and so we're looking forward to
What country?
Denmark.
Cool. Very cool.
And
Well,
when
that's
we
gonna
told
be
her that the
interesting.
weather forecast for Sunday was 60 degrees and rain, she said, sounds like Danish weather.
I love Denmark.
Very good.
So,
Anything else? No, well, I will finish off by saying, again, just follow up the same wishes that everybody have a great holiday season, enjoy your time, stay healthy, and let's all have a good new year next year. Good night.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Motion to adjourn, Bill Boyd, second by Tom Mahan. Anyone? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There you go.